I see that it's 6:30, and I think we are ready to roll. Is that right, Kyle? Okay, good. I'd like to welcome everybody. It's Tuesday, January 4th, 2022, to our first Columbus City Council meeting of the new year. We are meeting by Zoom tonight in order to protect citizens and staff from the spread of COVID. The weekly Columbia County Department of Health COVID activity report has now placed us in the critically high category, which is up from 2 weeks ago when we were in the very high category. So unfortunately, things are not improving. City Clerk Pat Gable will now take the roll.
Albright.
Here.
Arnold.
Here.
Clark is absent. Gray.
Present.
Motive.
Present.
Reed.
Here.
Rolke.
Present. Okay, great. If you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight's meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances, and I'm now looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Gray will move to approve the agenda.
Alder Motive will second.
So it has been moved and seconded that we approve tonight's agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Is anybody opposed? Okay. Correspondence and communications. Pat, has anyone signed up to speak tonight?
No, no one has.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda, and I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Alder Rolke approve tonight's consent agenda.
Alder Motive will second.
So it has been moved and seconded that we approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. So now moving on to new business. Our first order of new business tonight is to consider and take action on resolution 1-22. And this is providing an authorized representative to file applications for financial assistance from the state of Wisconsin Environmental Improvement Fund. And this is something that has come to us from the Water and Light Department, where as part of the potential DNR lead service line funding, the municipality applying for the funds must pass a resolution for an authorized representative to complete the applications and answer questions. And so the resolution reads as, the title of the resolution is Authorized Representative to File Applications for Financial Assistance from the State of Wisconsin Environmental Improvement Fund. And Water and Light is asking that we designate Dave Koenig to be appointed as the authorized representative. So I am looking for a motion.
Read motions to approve resolution 1-22, appointing David Koenig for the representative position.
Alder Gray will second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we approve this resolution that has been presented to us from the Water and Light Department. Is there any discussion, first of all? So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so that Resolution has been approved. Thank you so much. We're going to move on now to number 2 under new business, which is to consider and take action on ordinance number 763-22, which is an ordinance to create chapter 104 of the City Code of Ordinances establishing a stormwater utility. This ordinance requires 2 readings before we vote on it, unless there's a motion to suspend the rules and waive the first reading. And we would then be able to consider the ordinance this evening. So if so desired, I would need a motion to suspend the rules, waive the first reading, if that's something council is interested in.
Alder Gray will move to suspend the rules and waive the first reading.
Alder Motive will second.
So it has been moved and seconded that we suspend the rules, waive the first reading. All those in favor? Well, first of all, is there any discussion on this? Any questions on this? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Okay. So now we would need a motion to actually take action on the ordinance. And my understanding, and Kyle, please correct me if I'm wrong, whoever makes the motion should read the title of the ordinance, which is an ordinance to create chapter 104 of the City Code of Ordinances establishing a stormwater utility.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay. I am looking for a motion.
Alder Gray moves to adopt ordinance 763-22, an ordinance to create chapter 104 of the City Code of Ordinances establishing a stormwater utility.
Alder Motive will second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve this, creating this ordinance. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Shelley. Yes.
That's fine. So I had some questions on why we're doing this before the referendum. And I had asked this question of Kyle. So if Kyle could give us a little summary of why having, just setting up a stormwater utility, even if the referendum doesn't go through, how it can be useful to the city of Columbus.
Yes. Yes. So the utility structure itself is really the sort of the canvas that the future actions could happen on. So even if the referendum doesn't pass and we don't collect fees necessarily for this, we could still establish the utility and use it to fund and keep all those expenses and revenues segregated so that they would build over time. That would allow you to build up a little bit of fund balance over time, but also to better understand what your total exposure is of current expenses. And so it would help segregate it in that way. But adopting this now doesn't do anything with the fee. That still would have to be set at a later time. And I also think that any amendments from this point forward, the benefit would be we would have this to build off of, so that if we want to add an element of other limitations or restrictions on the utility, we would just be dealing with a single piece of ordinance that we could focus on specifically to address a concern that we might hear of in the next several meetings.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Kyle. I think that clears up a lot of maybe some questions that people may have had. Good question, Shelley. Anyone else? Ian?
And I just want to clarify that the referendum is not adopting the utility. The referendum is about charging the fee for that we would be collecting, and then the utility would be functional. It would be who of us to have a utility that the fee could go into before we ever collected a fee. So adopting the utility, creating a utility prior to collecting a fee is just the proper order.
Okay, anyone else have any questions or concerns? Okay, in that case. We had the discussion, right? The motion was made and seconded, we had the discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 3, which is to consider and take action on the zoning code amendment. This is an agenda item that was, we discussed at our last meeting. I know Matt's here if anybody has any questions about it. We are reviewing and discussing the Plan Commission recommendation regarding a proposed zoning text amendment to section 114-14 of the Columbus Zoning Code. I believe, Kyle, I think I've got this straight. We also need to use the same process as that which we used for the second item of business tonight. We need to waive the necessity for reading the ordinance twice. Is that correct? Did I get that straight?
That's correct for all of the ordinances, and this is actually an ordinance change.
Okay, so I guess first of all, what I'm looking for is a motion to, I want to make sure I get the wording correct here. Let's see, I would need a motion to suspend the rules and waive the first reading of this ordinance.
Alder Motif will make a motion to suspend the first reading of this ordinance.
Suspend the rules, waiving the reading.
Sorry, yeah, what he said.
So was that a second? Was that a second, Ian?
I will second to suspend the rules and waive the first reading.
Okay. So, is there any discussion on this? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, so now we have suspended the rules and we can move on to reading the title, which is an ordinance to repeal and recreate section 114-14 of the City of Columbus Code of Ordinances regarding number of principal buildings limited. By reading the title, that is apparently sufficient. And so I am looking for a motion to consider and take action on this zoning code amendment.
Alder Gray moves to approve ordinance 764-22, an ordinance to repeal and recreate section 114-14 of the City of Columbus Code of Ordinances regarding number of principal buildings limited.
Alder Albright will second that.
Great, it has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or any questions about this motion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, well, great, thank you very much. Now we're moving on to number 4, which is to consider and take action on the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant appraisals. I know Matt's here in case anybody has any questions on this item. Oops, hang on. Okay, so as many of you probably are aware, the city was awarded $403,468 for a TAP grant. Matt, if you're there, can you remind me, or Kyle, what does TAP stand for?
Transportation Alternatives Program.
Thank you. And this is to build bike and pedestrian trails in Columbus. And because the grant doesn't cover real estate costs, the city applied to the DNR for funding to acquire permanent limited easements, or PLE, for 9 parcels along the proposed trail. Matt, maybe, do you want to give us any more details, or?
So this originally came to the council on December 4th. My goal was to bring it back on December 21st. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to secure 3 bids before the 21st. Based on my discussion with DNR, it was okay if we had this approved earlier or at the first meeting in January. Thankfully, over the holiday break, I was able to secure a 3rd bid. And the 3rd bid that came in was $1,000 per property. It worked out to $9,000. So it was the lowest bidder. They provided the quickest turnaround time, and that's what we're recommending to use. And L.A. Dusterbeck is also, a fairly common name when you're looking at appraisal. So it's kind of a bigger firm. So I got the sense that they had the capacity to take on our project. So with that, any questions, please?
Any questions for Matt? I think it sounds like it's a good deal for us. And so I am looking for a motion to take action on this Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant appraisal.
Alder Albright can make a motion to take action on the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant appraisals.
Alder Rolke will second.
And the action is to approve it, right? Do we have to? Okay. Because this is well, first of all, is there any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we approve this. Because this does involve money, we're going to do a roll call.
Gray?
Aye.
Motive?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Rolke?
Aye.
Albright?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you very much. It sounds like a really interesting project too. Moving on to number 5, which is to consider and take action on temporary parking restrictions near the Columbus Middle School. Last week, or at our last meeting, Chief Weiner talked about the parking crunch around the elementary school because of all the construction and the workers, taking up places and complaints from the public. So in your packet, you have some information on these no parking zones in the South Main Street area behind the Columbus Middle School. And my understanding is that we are looking at maybe this going into the fall. Chief Weiner, would you like to add some details to your request, maybe, for clarification?
Sure. I think what we've done so far has been very effective, just in my travels through the area. And I would like to see it continued. One of the things that came up at the last meeting was picking a date, if this moved forward for council approval. And I would suggest that be September 1st. I know that the school's plan is that the construction be done by the start of the school year. If it's done earlier, we can certainly remove the signs and just not enforce it earlier. I think it's easier to go a little further on a date and then take the signs down, and I'll advise the officers not to enforce it, versus we cut it a little short and then all of a sudden we're back in a crunch again and we've got some unhappy people on both sides of the fence. So I would just recommend that it be approved as presented. We talked at length last time about the areas and the streets and how the layout is, and make it, and my request would be to approve them until September 1st, 2022.
Okay, thank you very much. So I am looking for a motion. Yes, Ian?
So would it perhaps be better to make the motion to be no later than September 21st by the discretion of the police chief? so that we don't have it perhaps past the date needed?
Sure, however you want to word it is fine. I think that, as you stated, would be great. Wording it just like that would be fine. No later than. So if we pull them down, if they're done early with the project and they're done mid-August and there's no more issues, we can take the signs down. So I think that's a good idea.
Thank you, Ian. So I am looking for a motion.
And was it September 21st that you said, Chief?
September 1st.
First, okay. I'll make a motion to approve the temporary parking restrictions no later than September 1st of 2022, or by the discretion of the police chief.
And
Alder
should we,
Moda.
I'm sorry, I just wondered, should we specify that the restrictions are near the middle school, or do we need to be that picky?
I think it says in our packet, so it's,
Okay.
I think it should be understood. Attorney Johnson might weigh in on that.
Okay, that sounds good. So somebody seconded, I think.
You got two.
Okay, good. So it has been moved and seconded that we approve the temporary parking restrictions near the middle school until September 1st. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, the next item on our agenda tonight is to consider and take action on the revised city fee schedule. And we had talked about this at our last meeting, so I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So I guess I'm looking for a motion to approve the revised city fee schedule.
We just had a quick question.
Sure.
Thank you. What is the best way for citizens to look up the fees? Do they check them with the individual departments?
That's a good question.
Brandon, did you want to take that one? I see you're on, otherwise I can.
Yeah, I certainly can. The fee schedule is posted on the website under the City Treasurer Finance Department page. Otherwise, yes, a lot of the certain fees they're going to get from talking to Matt, whether it's a zoning issue, our building inspector, if it's a, if it's an inspection issue, Pat's office, if it's a clerk's office issue question. So it'll mostly go to them, but if they wanted to see the entire schedule, we do have it posted on the site.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone? So in that case, I am looking for a motion.
A question, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
This does not include the aquatic center or any other fees that we were going to be reviewing in COW, correct?
Correct. The pool, the athletic fields, and the landscape recycle centers issues are not on this one.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Then I'm looking for a motion.
Alder Moda will make a motion to approve the revised fee schedule for the 2022 fiscal year.
Reed
Alder,
seconds.
Okay, yep. So it has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions? I think we're going to do a roll call. Yes, we'll do a roll call on this one also.
Gray,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Rolke,
Aye.
Albright.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you so much. We're moving on now to number 7, which is to consider and take action on the crew leader position description. It's been revised in advance of recruitment for that position. Changes incorporated primarily clarify the duties so it'll be easier for applicants to understand the relevant duties and responsibilities. The department is seeking approval to advertise immediately with the draft position description in order to keep the process moving along. And that was included in your packet, the position description. And I know Jerry's here tonight. I think he is. Yes, he's here. If anyone has any questions about the position. And if not, or if it looks pretty straightforward to me, but if anybody has any questions, yep, Jerry, there he is. If not, then I'm looking for a motion to approve the job description for the crew leader position. Yes, Shelley.
Alder Albright can make a motion to approve the crew leader position description.
Gray seconds.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the crew leader position description. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, great. Now we are gonna move on to considering and taking action on the RFP for the salary study and the structural evaluation. And, I'm wondering, maybe Kyle, do you want to just jump in here and give us a Reader's Digest thumbnail sketch of what we're asking for?
Sure. So again, we discussed it a little bit at the last meeting. Essentially, this RFP would have two components to it, one being a salary study for all full-time and regular part-time employees, also an operational evaluation. And so our goals would be to address some compensation concerns to make sure that we're being competitive with our wages across the board. And then also to identify some ways to improve some workflow and workload, and I guess just overall seek greater efficiency and effectiveness for all of our customers. The main difference that you'll see, and it's relatively minor from the last version to this, is that we narrowed the types of employees covered, and as well as the operations being evaluated, removing some of the more specific emergency services and focusing mostly on full-time and regular part-time employees.
Thank you very much. I know we did discuss this before. Does anybody have any questions before we move on to take action on this? Okay, in that case, I'm looking for a motion to take action on the RFP for the salary study and the structural evaluation.
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve the RFP for operational and compensation assessment.
Gray seconds.
It has been moved and seconded that we move forward, approve taking action on the RFP for the salary study and the structural evaluation. Is there any discussion? And there's no money involved in this action, so we can just, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Great, thank you so much. The next item is to consider and take action on claims in the amount of $131,153.42. So I'm looking for a motion.
Alder Gray moves to approve the claims in the amount read.
Alder Motif will second.
So it has been moved and seconded that we approve the claims in the amount of $131,153.42, and we will do a roll call on this item.
Gray,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Rolke,
Aye.
Albright.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to reports of the city administrator and the mayor. So Kyle, take it away.
All right, thank you. Just two reminders. One, again, about property taxes. For those of you paying property taxes to the city by the end of January, a couple options I wanted to remind everyone. You can obviously stop by City Hall during normal business hours, drop the payment in the drop box at City Hall, visit Farmers and Merchants Union Bank locations in Columbus, or you can pay online through the city website, and there should be a link there that says pay taxes now. The other reminder is that, again, we have some new snow emergency rules in effect this year. So there were some questions, and I just want to give a quick overview. So when a snow emergency goes into effect, there's actually notification signs that are displayed as you enter the city. Some of you have probably seen those. Additionally, we announce it on our Facebook page, our website, and the cable channel. And you can also sign up to get text and email notifications as well. So if you want to sign up for those alerts, you can go to our website and click on the emergency alerts, which is at the top of the page. And from there, you can select the option to notify me in the Alert Center text box. And those, you can choose to have emails and or text alerts. So once a snow emergency goes into effect, parking is restricted throughout the city for 48 hours or until the emergency is rescinded when the operations are complete. So for most of the city, that means you can't park on the street during the snow emergency. The exception to that is in the downtown business area where parking is restricted from midnight until 6 a.m. Real briefly, the downtown area includes James Street from Dickinson Boulevard to Water Street, Ludington Street from Mill Street to Harrison, Dickinson Boulevard from James Street to Church Street, Mill Street from Ludington Street to South Spring Street, and Harrison Street from South Water Street to South Dickinson Boulevard. Now, I don't expect everyone to have written that down, but you can find all this information linked from the scrolling banner on the top of our website or the snow policies section of the Public Works Department webpage. And if you have any questions about the specifics of the policy or the downtown business area or any questions in general, you can contact the police department or Public Works Department, and they'll help get the answer to whatever question you might have. And that's all I wanted to mention.
Okay, thank you very much, Kyle. And I appreciate you talking about the whole parking issue downtown, because I know there were concerns by some of the downtown businesses. There was some confusion. They thought people weren't going to be able to park in front of their businesses, and that is not the case, except for the hours specified. So thank you very, very much for clarifying that. Last week, I had the opportunity to meet our two new police hires at their swearing-in ceremony at the City Hall. And Julia Knoll is one of the new hires. She's a recent graduate from the Police Academy. She actually began today, I believe, December 4th, right? Brian Johnson from Plainfield, Illinois, was also hired. He's going to be starting the Police Academy at Madison College on January 10th. He will return here in May for his local training. Both candidates have bachelor degrees, and it was a real pleasure to meet them and meet their families and welcome them to Columbus. And we're very happy to see them join our police department and our community. And I wanted to also mention that candidates have filed paperwork to run for city council. The deadline for candidates to file in two districts, District 2 and District 3, the deadline has been extended to Friday, January 7th, because there was some, I guess, some confusion by the current candidates who needed to file, let's see, a declaration of non-candidacy and did not do that. And so therefore, we extend the deadline until January 7th for anyone from either District 2 or District 3 who wishes to run for those seats. If you're interested in running and you want more information, if you contact City Clerk Pat Gable, she can provide you with more information. You do need to have all your signatures in by this Friday, January 7th. I also mentioned at our last meeting how enjoyable it was to drive around town, see all the amazing decorations that people put up in Columbus. I thought it would be nice to congratulate the winners of the contest held by the Recreation Department. Contacted Amy Jo Myers, and she provided me with the names of the people who won. And really, I just, personally, I love it. I loved riding around, walking around with Ginger and looking at the lights. It just makes the city look so festive. So the District 1 winners were, the first place was won by Elise Weicker and Scott Higginson, who live on South Charles Street. And the second place in District 1 was awarded to Art Westergaard and Youth Smith, and they live on South Main Street. District 2 winners, the first place went to Mark and Natalie Draves, who live on Hillcrest Court, and the second place went to Terry and Sue Dressler, who live on Avalon Road. And then in District 3, the first place winners were Joe and Christina Barassa on North Birdsey Street, and the second place winner was Dominic and Lisa Wolf, who live on West Mill Street. So, and there was also a community vote, and the winner of that was Elise Weicker and Scott Higginson on South Charles Street. And so I just want to congratulate everybody who participated. And it's great. Let's do it again next year. And thank you, Amy Jo and Rec Department for doing this. I also want to mention that we are having our second listening session for the proposed stormwater utility. That's scheduled for Tuesday, January 25th at 6:30. This time it's going to be held at the Pavilion in Fireman's Park. There will be a microphone provided. I know there were concerns about the first session. Some of the attendees had difficulty hearing the speakers. So this time we hope to have that taken care of. So that's it for me for tonight. And so I think I'm going to hand it over to Ian now. Oh, before we do that, of course, we have to adjourn. Then I'll hand it over to Ian. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn the regular meeting.
I will make the motion to adjourn.
I can second that motion.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adjourn the regular meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? There never is. Okay. So Ian, do you want to move right into the next meeting, or do you want to take a break, or what do you want to do?
Let's take 5 minutes. I have 7:08, so
Okay.
Let's plan on like 7:13.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone. minutes and wait for Amy and,
I'm back, sorry.
oh, no problem. Well, I suppose we have a quorum and we can get through the formalities real quick while we're waiting on everyone. How's that sound? So I have 7:16 on Tuesday, January 4th. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole. With that, if Pat, could you take a roll call for us?
Albright?
Here.
Arnold?
Here.
Clark? No, excuse me, Clark is excused. Gray?
Present.
Motive?
Present.
Reed?
Here.
Rolke?
Present.
Thank you. And this meeting was properly noticed. So next up on the agenda is to approve the agenda. So if there are, oh wait, I did receive an email. Sorry, I only saw it just before the meeting. Amy Jo wanted to move up items 9 and 10. Kyle or Pat, could you tell me exactly where we want to put those?
So I think the request was, the easier way to do it would be to move number 8, which is the ethics discussion, behind the aquatic center fees and athletic field use agreements.
Okay, perfect. So if we could move item number 8 to be item number 10, and then move 9 and 10 up to 8 and 9 respectively. If I could get a motion to approve the agenda with those alterations.
Alder Rolke will move to approve the agenda with the stated alterations.
Alder Motive will second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Perfect. The agenda is approved. Next up are citizen comments. I understand there were none. Is that correct, Pat?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. So moving on, in your packet, you will see a very extensive amount of committee and commission minutes from the Cable Committee, the CDA. Well, it's a lot of them. You all have them in front of you. Everybody's getting them in for the last one. Were there any questions, comments, concerns on any of the minutes? No. Perfect. Then moving on. Next up is to review the DPW equipment repair request, and we do have Jerry here with us tonight to explain that to us. Would you like to take the floor, Jerry?
Sure. As you know, the Department of Public Works maintains a fleet of vehicles and equipment, and every year this equipment is inspected annually, in some cases biannually. A couple seasons ago, some equipment was noted for either replacement or repairs. The truck in question, which is DPW truck, plow salt truck number 4, was identified 2 seasons ago as having issues with its dump box. The truck has now progressed to the point of needing to replace that dump box. The truck, we feel in Our opinion after having it inspected 2 different times, that, we can replace the box, but keep the truck, not replace the entire unit, thus saving, many tens of thousands of dollars. The dump box is a significant replacement, but we feel it's going to add many years of life to this vehicle. It's to the point that if we don't replace it soon, the truck will be DOT red flagged and put out of service. So, if there's any questions regarding the dump box itself, it's the entire back end of the truck, the dump box, the tailgate, and all of the components used to lift and hoist that truck. That's why there's such a significant amount for repair costs on that. The other item in question here is, I noted, is I already started getting estimates for replacement on this, because as we know, there's a severe issue with the supply chain. Some of this equipment I've been checking around on, and depending on what vendor we go with and what equipment it is, lead times that used to be 2 to 3 months are now taken. On this particular dump box, we're being told 8 to 12, 8 to 14 months in some components. So if we order it now, we might see it next winter. So that's one of the things that I put in this agenda item is to note that we've already started procuring some estimates in anticipation of this, because it's going to be a long wait before this can get repaired.
Thank you so much, Jerry. So it's definitely something that we need, of course. Wisconsin can't get by without that. Were there any questions or anything for Jerry? No. Is everyone comfortable moving this forward for the next regular meeting for approval?
Yes.
Question. Oh, so would we be moving forward with the recommended Madison truck stainless steel?
Of the 3 estimates, that's the cheapest one.
For stainless steel?
Yeah, for stainless steel, correct. The stainless steel, to note, sometimes tends to be a little bit more, but actually the increases in metal, the carbon steel, if you will, the actual steel body, those prices have gone up significantly faster than the actual stainless steel. And on top of that, stainless steel is going to give us many more years of life than steel would. So that's the only adjustment. That's why I put in that one estimate for steel. You see that there's not much of a difference now. There used to be a significant difference, but because of the supply chain crunch and all the different price increases, that gap is pretty much narrowed. And we feel, in our opinion, going with stainless is going to give us the longevity that we need out of that truck.
Thank you.
I would like to note too that the inspections, some of the inspections on the equipment, on vehicles and equipment are done in-house. But when it comes to salt trucks and some of the trucks that carry a load, those are sent out by recommendations of DOT standards, and they're inspected by an outside source. So 2 companies are, besides in-house, there's 2 companies that identified the issues with the truck and the mounts and the corrosion within there.
Thank you, Jerry and Trina. Does that answer your question, Trina? Good. Anybody else? All right, then sounds like we have a consensus to move that forward with the recommendations to our next regular meeting. So next up would be to review landscape recycling center policy and recycling fees. So we've spoken about this in the past, and Jerry's put together some things. So if you'd like to head that off for us again, Jerry.
Sure. I think all of our landscape center recycling fees were kind of in order, and I don't think there were too many questions about that. I can't remember who last time brought up a really good question regarding contractors and, you know, some of the restrictions and imposing quantity maximums and incorporating fees. And I know this area has been a topic of discussion for a long time here, and since I've got here, I know I've had a couple of different discussions in-house and with Kyle. But I think the question was raised last time, contractors. I can't remember. I think it was Sarah that may have said it, or you.
It was Shelley.
Shelley. In my experience, I know there's probably some municipalities out there that don't govern contractors too much. But the contractor usage at our particular center, I feel there's some abuse, if you will, and to put it mildly. There's material coming in from outside of the city and material that's being used, and contractors are using it excessively. And I know a lot of municipalities put restrictions on the usage. The greater majority of municipalities actually don't allow contractors or contractor vehicles within their centers. Some of them do allow them in there, but then they make them abide by the same standards that residents have to abide by, both quantities and usage. It's just my opinion that I think the contractors should have to abide by the same standards, because we understand that there is that abuse. There's contractors that are doing multiple mowings, multiple trees. They're taking all this material down. They're bringing it in and saying that they're doing it for the Columbus residents, when in fact we know they're not. I think by putting a cap on how much they bring in weekly and or incorporating a fee beyond that cap is something that we should look at. And again, I know there's discussion going both ways on that. I think the biggest thing here is we need to make sure that we allow Columbus residents full access to that site. And I think we do that pretty well, and I think we give them pretty much unlimited use, and putting a cap or a quantity and fees on them isn't fair. So addressing the landscapers where the issue lies is probably what we should do. To know, I feel there's probably a good, give or take 20%, 25% of the volume of material that we get down there is contractor material. And it's very expensive to dispose of this material. So I've laid out 3 different suggestions here. I know there's probably opinions, multiple different ways, both a fee on top of the contractors and setting a quantity limit for the landscape recycling center in general. This is both for the landscapers and contractors that use it. And I think it's laid out pretty well in that little agenda that I gave you there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jerry. And kind of like to reiterate what Jerry was saying, I think the important thing here is we all want to make sure that our residents are provided with the service that they are paying for in their taxes. But we also don't want to burden our constituents with contractors abusing that, because they are also paying for that abuse. So so in your packets, you'll see the highlighted area that I think personally makes a lot of sense on the first page there. If we set a minimum, a maximum, like this one is suggesting 3 yards weekly, I would revert to Jerry for what that amount should be, because I have no idea. For Columbus residents or contractors performing the work for the residents. And then also if it's a contractor, making them provide a landscape tag, an ID, a proof of residency for citizens, goodness. And then the contractors having to have a signed consent form, things of that nature, and making them abide by the same rules. Because a contractor, whether it's a contractor or a citizen, if we have a limit, if the contractor is doing it on behalf of the citizen, they should have to be within that same limit. And I think that just makes sense. Trina brought up, I believe it was Trina that brought up like the tags before. And I think this is kind of in that same line of thinking, I think maybe having a consent form is a little easier. So you just go and get the consent form and send it with your contractor. Go ahead, Trina.
Yes. I mean, the way I was picturing was more for the resident to need to pick up the form. I can't picture random contractors having the time to make it, maybe make an extra trip to try and get the tags during, regular business hours. Just trying to think of how to have it fairly simple.
I think it'd be simple. The customer could get the form from DPW, from City Hall, and then complete it and sign it and give it to their contractor. If the contractor wanted to go the extra mile, they could go to DPW or City Hall and pick it up and get it signed. But that, I think, is more between the resident and the contractor than anything of how they're going to do it. I don't think we should be worried about making things simpler for the contractor. We should worry about making sure our citizens are served and getting what they pay for in their taxes, not to make things easy for a contractor. Go ahead, Shelley.
So I used 2 contractors last year, and we had to go pick up our tags at DPW last year. I think that was actually the first time, right? We usually got our sticker at the center. So, you know, when somebody uses a contractor, they normally know that they're going to do it in advance. So when people pick up their tag or their sticker or whatever it is from DPW, if it's just going to be a basic form, they could pick up a couple forms, have them at the house, and then fill them out, you know, as needed.
Right. It could also be downloaded from the website in the future. It's a form that could exist online that they could print out and download. Yeah. I agree with you, Shelley. Thank you. Go ahead, Sarah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I'm guessing this will be on the website and it's something they could easily download whenever they needed it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One other thing I want to point out, I mean, we'll make that form as accessible as possible, and it's what other communities do. We'll put a cap on the yards, cubic yards per week. That's pretty much at the high end of what other communities do. They'll make sure the residents can bring down as much as they can. During storm events, I'd like to see the center open for everybody. If we have a storm and we're hauling a bunch of stuff, we'll open it up, and residents and contractors, as long as they show that they're bringing the stuff from Columbus residents again, should be able to use it. On that topic, I would say that to point out, Amy Jo is working on an item right now. I think you're familiar with it, where she's changing over a lot of stuff that she does to little barcodes or little electronic scan that she's using at the aquatic center. And that's something that we're looking at possibly incorporating at the landscape center to take the place of the tags that would make everything even easier. And actually that tag and that scan would allow a lot more information to be readily available just from that scan. It would give the person that signs up for that particular barcode, it would give all of they wouldn't need their ID and their driver's license with them when we scanned it. We would see all that right on the barcode. So the process would only get a little bit easier in the future if we incorporated that.
Thank you, Jerry. My only other thought is, so if we implement a weekly maximum of, be it 3 yards or whatever it may be, should there be a per annum maximum too? Because a resident would not be delivering 3 yards a week, every week for the entire season. So there's still that risk of a contractor still utilizing something that they shouldn't be if it's only weekly without a complete cap. Does that make sense? Or am I just reading into it too much?
When I checked around with other communities, I think that's one of the things that would stifle some of our residents. Some residents that are retired and have bigger yards are out constantly doing yard work, taking down trees. They may use it a lot more than the other residents that just use it for grass clippings or the periodical stuff. So I didn't know if that would be a good incorporation, you know, an annual maximum. Unless we wanted to set an annual maximum just for contractors, you know, that they can use it just like residents. They can bring down the weekly amounts. I think I did mention in there that if they brought down anything beyond the weekly maximum, say they brought down a load on Monday and it was the full 3 or 4 or 5 cubic yards that we set, and then on Friday they show up again, that maybe we don't, as long as they prove that they're doing it for a resident and they took on some other work, but that we now then charge them for that load because they've exceeded our weekly maximum. That would bring down that annual usage or give them fees upon that.
So you don't think there's a real need for an annual cap?
I think that would hamper some of our residents, and that takes away from what we're trying to do. I mean, if anything, we're trying to make it easier for the residents and allow them to use it, you know, openly. That's what their tax dollars are for. We're only trying to restrict, you know, contractors.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Go ahead, Trina.
Oh, thank you. I guess my first question is, I'm trying to recall how much, grinding is, and do we normally have 2 grindings a year for the trees and whatnot?
Some years you can have two, depending on the amount of storms, depending on the amount of usage. I would say that, for the volume of this municipality and its population, looking at historical data I see, I think a good average is between $7,000 and $10,000. I would say, I think right now we're budgeted 8,000 or 9,000 for the grindings. It is very expensive, and we looked at, this year we actually went with a different vendor, that brought down our grindings cost quite a bit because of the way that they mobilize. We were hoping to start hauling the grindings away too, rather than trying to leave them or get rid of them ourselves, because the DNR is starting to impose different restrictions on the grindings. Something to do with the diseases and different elements. They want it going to landfills, being used as overlay material, and a lot of that stuff is being permitted now. So in the future, we might find ourselves taking on additional costs for hauling away the grindings, not just grinding. But yeah, I would say give or take $8,000 on an average right now.
Oh, thank you. And then I guess my other question is, how difficult will this be for the employee there to keep track, and how are they going to count the cubic yards? I mean, some people, have, for residencies, have, rather large trailers that they pull there, often weekly or several times a week that I see the same ones going by. And I know they're not contractors, they are just avid gardeners. And then, like, for myself, I will make a ton of car trips. Is someone going to have to count the bags or estimate a pile in the back of a trunk? Just how is this going to work for adding everything up?
It's actually kind of simple once they get used to it. Most municipalities do this. Through the years that I've been doing it, they use size. A cubic yard is a 3 by 3 by 3. So if we say, 2 cubic yards or 3 cubic yards, a lot of times you can say that's the back of a pickup truck, or that's this standard trailer, a single axle trailer of a 8 by 10 or 8 by 12 size filled to this height. So we can get, the ones that have become difficult are the ones that are bringing in, a trunk load or, the back end of a little vehicle with just a few bags at a time. But those really aren't the ones that we're concerned with. We're not trying to hamper those residents. It's going to be the larger quantities that are coming in that we're trying to cap. The resident that mows their yard 2-3 times a week and really does a lot of gardening, I can't see that being an issue, unless you gather it all up at the end of the week, and I still can't see that being more than 3, 4, 5 cubic yards of material each week. We'll put out, what I'm planning on doing, we've already talked about, is putting out a structure or size so residents can see it of what, once we decide whether it's 3 cubic yards or 4 cubic yards, we'll have a sign that'll have measurements on it, and then roughly what that size is so they understand what it is.
Thank you. I think, like, if we're worried about some residents having more than others, we could also talk about having a separate limit for residents versus contractors as well, or maybe not having residents limited, only contractors. I don't know if a resident the limits are really going to become a major issue, though.
I don't think we should start restricting the residents at this point. They pay their taxes and it goes towards this. That should be enough.
I agree. We're trying to, I think the whole target of this and the whole discussion that's been going on for years, and it's the same in other municipalities, is the large volume contractors.
And so maybe we should be looking at restricting contractors to a weekly amount for now, and if we need to include residents in that again, what's the rest of council think? Do you think we should set a limit for everyone, including contractors and residents, or just a limit for contractors? Sarah, sounds like you would be just for restricting contractors. Shelley, what do you think?
The contractors, I see them go by my house a lot during the summer, and they've got some pretty heavy loads going by, so yeah.
And that is really the meat of what we're trying to accomplish. We don't want to take away a service from a resident. We want to make sure contractors don't abuse it. Trina, you have your hand up.
Oh, I do. So by restrict, I would want to then have a fee incurred. I would not want, residents to somehow wind up being, stuck with big piles from a tree that died, and, I just want to make sure there is a way that services can happen.
I'm a little confused on what you're trying to.
If we put in, if we just restrict the contractors, residents that have a tree come down, if they hire a contractor and the contractor provides that form, they'll be able to bring that tree down, no problem. Even if it takes a couple loads, as long as he's doing the work for that resident and doesn't exceed the weekly maximum.
Oh, yeah, I guess that was my concern, of that I think a lot of people will exceed the weekly maximum. Not a lot, but, at least quite a few dozen for their own, waste from the yard.
Right, so are you saying you would be more for restricting contractors but not residents, allowing residents to bring as much as they want?
I guess I'm just looking for a way to have the volume upped for what a contractor could be brought in, because again, what counts as a contractor varies a lot. It might be a real company. It might just be someone with a truck for hire that can pick things up.
Okay, thank you. And Amy, what are your thoughts?
I would also be for just limiting contractors.
Okay. So it sounds like we have or Mayor Arnold, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Shelley and Amy and Sarah. Yeah, limit the contractors.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a consensus to limit the contractors and continue to allow residents to bring however much they need to. So the amount to limit in the suggestion was 3 yards. Does that sound, which is about a pickup truck, like the bed of a pickup truck, for a contractor to bring per week? Does that sound like a good amount to everyone to move forward?
If that's what Jerry recommends, I don't know what kind.
I'll give you some information here. I audited 44 different municipalities online. Not one of them, and I'm sure they're out there, but not one of them allowed contractors. And it took me a lot of time to do that. Not one of them allowed contractors at all. The ones that did allow they didn't allow them free, just to bring anything in without any charges. The ones that did allow them had a range of 2 to 5 cubic yards. There wasn't any municipality that allowed more than 5 cubic yards per week. So, if we wanted to go on the high end, to service our community the best we can, we can say 5 yards. 5 yards is a small dump truck, not a 1 ton, but a dump truck. It's usually a 5 cubic yard by measurement of the sides in the box.
So I know that projects are all over the place, but an average project, would a dump truck or would a pickup truck service most area contracts? Does that make sense?
I think this is a really difficult one to try to please 100% of the residents. I think we're going to capture a good 85, 90, 95, 80 to 95% of them, 80 to 90% of them that if we say the back end of a pickup truck for all your yard clippings and all your leaves weekly, that should be sufficient. Again, my recommendation on that, 3 yards is a little bit larger of a pickup truck. So 3 yards is a good average of what communities allow. But again, you know, residents, if they have their own truck and trailer and they're taking down a tree, they should be able to come down and do that. It's the contractors. If the contractor comes in and he's got a contractor vehicle, or if he is a contractor, we want to restrict his usage.
Right, and I mean, the other thing to look at in all of this is we're trying to make sure that we are giving our citizens what they are paying for, but we don't want contractors abusing it. Now, contractors 99.9% of the time are also charging that person to dispose of this product. So why should we be allowing them to dispose of endless amounts of product for free when they're already charging their customer? So I think in putting a more normal limit on a contractor is, I think it's prudent, and it shouldn't be anything bad. If they want to dispose of more than that, they can figure out how to dispose of more than that. They're charging their client to dispose of it anyway. My only thing is, part of me would like to be able to charge if they want to dispose of more, but I think that is going to be more costly, more time consuming, and more difficult than it's worth in collecting fees. So I would personally, what I would like to move forward, and what it sounds like the majority of you would like to move forward, is limiting contractors to 3 yards a week maximum, while leaving residents open to whatever they need to dispose of.
I think that makes sense. And, you know, in my case, they might have been a little bit larger than 3 yards, but then in that case, I would give them a form that says, you know, they're doing this for me, correct? We still want to do that with like a. I
think the contractor should still have the consent form. Okay. I think that's the best way to move forward too.
I think that makes sense, because then that will limit people from, like, if they're in Fall River or whatever, the surrounding areas, that people are having work done for them.
Right, and that's where a lot of the abuse is coming from, is surrounding areas. They're still putting it here, and our taxpayers are paying for it.
Right. Exactly. All right.
Sounds like we are all in consensus, so does that give you a good direction to move forward, Jerry and Kyle? Perfect. Thank you. So next up is, so we are going to jump down to review the aquatic center fees. Amy Jo is, or?
I'm City of Columbus.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Hey, Amy, would you like to kick this one up for us?
Sure. Actually, I have Kane here with me tonight as well. He's going to talk a little bit about it. As you know, council members requested to have a discussion on possibly raising the aquatic center membership fees. And I'm going to actually pass it over to Kane. So if you have any questions, just kind of holler, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Over here. All right, so as you guys know, the last couple of years have been greatly affected by COVID. We put that in the rates there. You can see that 2020 and 2021, they obviously didn't hit our goals and our budget amounts for daily admissions, or obviously the family admissions. And, you know, after kind of reflecting on that and seeing the numbers of surrounding communities and even surrounding businesses, you know, myself personally and Amy Jo, you know, we'd like to maybe talk with our pool board a little bit more on potentially raising the rates, if that's the option that a lot of you guys want to go to. You know, personally too, I think that if we were going to raise the rates, I think raising the daily fee and maybe our 10 punch passes would be best. That way, maybe we could drive up our, family passes instead of just having so many people buy the single passes and daily passes that way. Because a lot of other community pools do that too, where they charge a higher fee for daily passes to try and entice people to take that family membership purchase, because that way we're kind of assured and guaranteed that, you know, money up front. I do worry if we did raise it a little bit too much, that it might drive some people to kind of search out other pools. We have quite a few people coming from the Sun Prairie area and over in Rio, DeForest. We have a lot of people that come from different communities to our pool.
Yeah.
And I don't want to scare them off by raising, you know, the non-resident fees outside of kind of their price point to drive over here and everything. And with that in mind too, you know, I do have a lot of groups that come from Sun Prairie and DeForest area that they take on that fee because they're, of course, willing to, you know, drive that, bus the kids in, and then they do spend a lot of money on the concession stand. But we'd kind of like to, you know, have you guys come up with some suggestions and then also probably take it to our pool board to see what they would suggest as community members to see what, you know, especially after COVID these last 2 years, what the finances could add up for them, if that makes sense to you guys.
Thank you so much, Kane and Amy Jo. Go ahead, Mayor Arnold.
I'm just wondering, what's the cost for a family yearly membership?
Yeah, so a family membership for Columbus residents is $200, and then the non-resident rate is $225. And that is limited to the people that live within that household. So we're trying not to have, you know, aunts, uncles, or random grandparents that live so far away on that pass.
Is there a number of people max on that, or just a household max?
So it is limited to 9 on our system, but like I said, we try and monitor who's on there. So if we see a couple people on that pass that are, you know, say 50, and then there's a couple 40-year-olds, then we know that's, you know, they're trying to take advantage of it, and we have a conversation with them to try and limit that.
Okay, so probably, I suppose that's a difficult one to monitor appropriately, because children don't have IDs frequently. So when cousins and grandchildren and everyone else are visiting, that's a difficult one.
Yeah, and, you know, we try to monitor the best we can with our cards, because we do print, you know, pictures of the kids when our camera, you know, the last year it's been a little tough with, like I said, the COVID situation, and just a lot of new staff trying to sort it out. But, you know, we do have pictures of people on those cards to make sure that they are valid. And I'm there quite a bit to make sure that nobody's lying, and then I can talk to them.
Yeah, we're pretty familiar with the families and know who belongs to what family or what household.
Right, it's a small community, you know most of them. So when they sign up for a family membership, do they need to list who is in their family and whom will be using it?
Yeah, so right when they sign up, you know, we go through and ask them literally all the questions with who's on the date of birth, you know, all that stuff, just to make sure they're valid passes. And that's the nice thing this year with switching over from ActiveNet to a new system, we're going to be able to kind of filter some of those out, because there's been a lot of people that duplicate their memberships because they forget a password and then they create a whole new person, even though, I mean, we get some people that have 4 and 5 different, you know, passes, even though it's the same person. So it'll be a little easier for us to monitor and kind of clean up, because I think we've had ActiveNet now at least 10 or 12 years, and it's been getting kind of
cumbersome.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think that helps a bit. Let's see. Anybody else have a question or comment?
Well, I'm just going to say that, you know, I have friends in Madison who love our pool and who come here because they really don't have anything like that, or maybe they do now, but they didn't years ago. So I think it's a great draw for Columbus, and I'm fine with, there aren't too many things you can do all day long for $5 anymore. So I think I'm fine with raising rates. The only concern I have is, is there any kind of program for maybe low-income families who could really use this kind of recreation, who just maybe can't afford to send their kids, very often? Are there like organizations in town that maybe sponsor the kids, or is there anything like that going on, Amy Jo, or Kane, that you're aware of?
Well, I mean, for us, the last number of years, we've tried to work with a lot of people when it comes to the family passes, where we don't charge them, we'll kind of stagger the payments for that $200 to do them. And then I know that the county has helped out some families.
Correct.
With getting them to be able to come and enjoy the aquatics facility. So that is something that's nice, and maybe that's something we should look into a little bit more to see if any other organizations in Columbus would want to do that. Sponsor a family or something.
Mm-hmm. That's a great idea. Okay, thank you.
Yes, good questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Arnold. My question is, do we know what the rates are of surrounding communities?
Well, I know that Watertown charges, I believe, a little bit more than us. Sun Prairie charges less, but Sun Prairie does not have the hours that we do. They're only open some days 2 to 3 hours a day. We are very comparable for what we offer, and for the amount of hours that we're open, I believe it's very fair.
I think we provide a really nice service. And one thing that's kind of hard about our area is that we're surrounded by a lot of the YMCA pools that have that agreement where they're kind of sharing facilities with, Dodge County YMCA, and then Fox Lake, Horicon, Waupun, all of them kind of go in together and charges, a fixed rate for their members. But like I said, I think a lot of them in the surrounding area, they do have their daily rate set up a little higher. That way it entices more people to buy a family membership. But like I said, this might be something we want to talk to the pool board about, just because, like I said, I'm a little nervous with the last 2 years and what COVID could have done with some finances for families.
Thank you. Thoughts from council on what the current rates are, what potential future, go ahead, Shelley.
I agree with Mayor Arnold. I think if our daily rate is $4, I think raising it to $5 is more than reasonable. And the daily rate and the 10 punch, to me, those amounts seem like they make sense, because if you do a family of 4 and it's $200, that's roughly, what is it, like $50 a month? I think, because what is May, June, July, August, September, or?
It's about $66 a month, because we're open for that 3-month period.
Okay, so so in theory, the daily the 10 punch card could actually still technically be cheaper for somebody if they're not going to come every single day. So.
Correct. That's why we thought it's good to have that option. And then buy 9, get 1 free, so.
Okay.
Okay, so Shelley is looking to raise the daily and punch rates, but not the annual rates.
Right.
Sarah?
I agree with that. I think we should raise the daily and the punch card rates, but not the family annual.
Right. So one more thing. I mean, we do have rain days. So I think if somebody does pay the $200, it could be a whole week and they might not be able to go. So I think that where the punch cards, their days get saved. So.
Trina?
I just wanted to ask about possibly raising out-of-town family, maybe an extra $25. I don't think I'd want to raise out-of-town individual, because that would probably affect the camps, and I don't want to, scare off big groups.
So you're saying for the annual rate?
For the annual family out-of-town.
Family membership to $250 is what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm thinking.
I mean, myself personally, I'm a little hesitant on that one just because families do have to travel to get here. And that's where I'm at with that. I think that if we raise the price of, the non-resident daily rate up $1, I think we'll still entice enough people to come here and try it. But I would be a little nervous with $200 or $250 for the family non-resident, just because I think it might scare people off to want to just do daily passes then and go to different pools in the area. And, with my goal for getting people there is obviously to, have a good time, eat food, and then just enjoy the community and try and go to other businesses. And I think that $250 would just scare off some families, especially after the last couple of years.
Because we do get a lot of people, even like Fall River would be considered non-resident. Families in Elba outside the city limits are non-resident, Waterloo. So that could scare a lot of people to other area pools rather than coming to ours.
Yeah, so I totally get that in part, and I also get what Trina's saying in part. So one thing that we have to keep in mind is that the pool is not a money-making scheme for our city. It costs us a lot of money, and it is something that we do as a service to our residents. So increasing non-resident fees, I'm really not that opposed to, because this is a service for our residents. It's not a service for people that live in Waterloo. If they decide to come and spend money here, that's amazing. I love it. Great. But I don't think we need to run in fear of them not utilizing a service for our constituents.
How about a smaller increase of $5 or $10 versus 25? I think 25 is a big jump.
Yeah, I'm amenable to an amount. I just don't, in principle, I don't think we should be looking at scaring away non-residents is all I'm saying. Like, we should be focusing on our residents and what's best for us and lowering their tax burden, because the aquatic center is a massive burden on our residents. So we should be looking at our residents, not potentially scaring away someone from Waterloo. The amount, if we scare away a family from Waterloo and we lose that $200 a year, that is a far cry less than what we're asking our residents to pay for, the tens of thousands a year. That's my thought. Let's not end on that note. Anybody else? Go ahead, Trina.
I see that somebody put something in the chat there too, Ian.
Oh, sorry.
Michael Clark put a message in the chat.
Oh, yeah, Michael Clark is asking about lowering fees for residents.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I
think the prices are more than fair for what they're at right now.
Oh, I guess I didn't want to feel like we're making anything too final today. I really just wanted to
absolutely
put, some ideas out there for the pool board, and then they can discuss and let us know what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Exactly. I'm on the same page of Trina. I just didn't want us to be focusing on non-residents. Like, this is a service we provide to residents.
Correct. So what Kane and I can do, typically we have our first meeting of the year in March. We'll bring these ideas from council members to the board and we'll have a discussion. And we can bring it back to council in April or one of the meetings in March. Does that sound?
Yeah, when does the pool open?
It's going to be probably the first weekend in June. We got to contend with a lot of sports from the high school kids, and those run normally that through May. So hopefully it warms up.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, as long as we have time to do it prior to the pool opening with a little bit of warning to people. Sure. I don't want to come back with a price increase last minute.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Shelley.
So Amy Jo, I think you already started, doing seasonal passes, right? For some of the, for.
Yep, early bird specials, correct.
Yeah, early bird specials. So one of the things I was thinking of, I guess I didn't realize the pool board didn't start until March, but my kind of thought was if you could, we can throw out there that, prices may increase, and maybe if we can get most of the people to sign up by by June 1st, and then raise the prices as of June 1st, then you don't get that early bird deal type thing.
Sure. Yeah, I can definitely do a media blast. That's a possibility that we've sold 10 so far. Typically, we sell anywhere from 30 to 40 memberships before the pool opens every year. Last year we sold 38.
And that's the annual memberships you're talking about?
Yep. And that was not the total all year. That was just before the pool opened. Yeah. People buy them for Christmas gifts, birthday presents, and,
right.
Just to have before we open. And we sell quite a bit. Kane does during the pool season.
And that makes a lot of sense. So my other thought is, so since it is quite a while, and I do like Shelley's idea of, rates may go up by now, that could get more people buying them, and that's a great idea.
Yeah.
What if we move forward with raising the daily rates to the suggested $5 and $6 and the punches to 45 and 55, and say the annual rates may go up, by now and lock in the current rate prior to the pool board meeting. I don't think $1 is anything anyone's going to balk at, and it's a minimal amount to try to recoup some of the cost that is already encumbering our residents. So maybe the council decides to raise the daily rates and punch rates, and pool board meets and decides to make a recommendation to council about the annual rates. Trina?
Oh, I do feel like we should try to wait on the pool board. We're just having the message out there that rates may increase by now.
That makes sense. I'm just worried about it being so last minute. So if the pool board meets sometime in March or April, we come back and we're talking in April and then goes to committee of whole. We're talking by the time the pool opens, that's when rates would be changed. And that is extravagantly last minute. That's why I'm saying maybe we change the daily rates and things now and then let the pool board meet about the annual rates. Go ahead, Sarah.
I'd like to recommend that we make the change on the daily rates and the punch cards now. I mean, we're a city operating on a very tight budget, and the pool has an even tighter budget, and I think that this will help contribute to their revenues starting now.
I agree with that.
So it sounds like we have a consensus to move forward to increase the current daily rate of non-residents to $5, current daily rate of resident to $5, current daily rate of non-resident to $6, current resident punch pass to 45, and current non-resident punch pass to 55 to the next regular meeting.
Yes.
And then we will wait for the pool board to meet and discuss the annual.
Yep, I'll try to get a meeting in February. I'll contact everybody and see if we can meet in February.
Awesome. I appreciate that so much, Amy Jo. Sure. I just really don't want to create a price hike right before.
Yep, that's fair.
And I think we're all in agreement that raising it $1 for a daily rate is the best for everyone and shouldn't scare anyone away.
It'll make it a little bit of a difference, so that helps.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Does everyone have enough direction with that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Then moving on, Amy Jo is also here to discuss our athletic field use agreements.
Hello again. In front of you, you have a recommendation from the Recreation Committee to raise the participation fee for the sports contract for Columbus Softball Association and the Columbus Area Youth Soccer Organization. It was standard at $5 for either a resident or non-resident, and we are recommending it to be $10 per resident and $20 for each non-resident. Non-residents do not pay taxes to the city to help offset our costs associated with anything that happens in the parks. And we are also suggesting that they have one free tournament throughout the year of their contract, and any additional tournament would be at the cost of $500, which is still extremely fair considering Kiwanis Park per day on our fee schedule is $500 per day, and Meister Park is $250 per day. So this is at least getting a little bit more revenue to help set the costs associated with DPW and the gas and their labor, paper products and things such as that. So that is what we're proposing.
Thank you so much, Amy Jo. That makes a lot of sense to me. If, yeah, I mean, if you think that's the appropriate fees to go to, and it sounds like that would still be extravagantly competitive.
Yeah, the fees have been the same since 2011. It's time for an increase, and we thought that this would be something that's fair enough without, we understand that these are volunteers that are giving back to the community, and we don't want to offset their fundraising events as well.
Right, catching up with the times, but not a massive hike.
Correct.
Anybody have any questions or comments or concerns? I'm seeing, oh, go ahead, Shelley.
I absolutely agree with Amy's proposal. I guess my only comment is at one point we did have something for people within the school district, and it was in between. I don't know if that was still something that might be better or not, but I definitely think the people that are considered non-resident should be up to the $20 mark.
I think if the school district was paying to offset it, that would be a different story. I think the way this is set up makes sense to me personally. Any other thoughts on that? Go ahead, Attorney Johnson.
Shelley was going where I was going, because the agreement that we have right now as drafted doesn't define resident or non-resident. So where would you like that, how would you like that defined? Do you want to use school district as your boundaries?
We would use, Attorney Johnson, we would use city limits like we do for the pool. Those that reside within city limits would be considered a resident. Outside the city limits would be a non-resident.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The other question that I had on your one tournament for free, do you don't have a rate for like single games, is that correct?
We do not. That is something that the organization, they run the tournaments themselves. They take the registration, run concessions, and do all of that on their end. We're just providing them the fields and the concession stand.
So would a tournament be defined as a multi-day event, or is there something?
A multi-day, I would say like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday is typically what these organizations have, the 3-day. Sunday's usually the wrap-up day.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And does anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, is everyone okay with moving that forward? All right, seeing lots of nodding heads. Thank you so much, Amy Jo.
Yeah, thank you.
And let's see here. Next up is to review next up is to review the IT service options. No, I have it. I missed one, didn't I?
I think it's back to the ethics.
Yes, I missed probably the largest discussion for tonight. So let's review the draft ordinance for the ethics committee and the draft code of conduct. So for the draft, we all have that in our packet. I have to relocate it because things are out of order. Let's see here. Perfect. So the draft ordinance, Attorney Johnson, did you want to give any background on that or?
Sure. After the last committee of the whole meeting, I went back through the ethics committee ordinance and I identified all of the sections of the ordinance that are actually taken straight from state statutes pertaining to local authorities. Those are all your references to 1959 that you see in red as you go through the document. I also went back through and identified all of the statutory references for government officials and the like that are allowed by statute, and those are your references to 1941 and I think it was 1956, if I remember, or 1945, sorry. And I did that just to show you what is quote unquote required for ethics, what is permitted for ethics, and then the areas that don't have any references by them at all are things that I threw into this ordinance from other communities or things that I thought were generally a pretty good idea. And so the things that are identified with references in red are things that should be kept, and the things that are not are things that are up to you to make the final decision. And all of that leads to the conversation on the one paragraph that we had last time about the political activity paragraph, which is on the bottom of page 6. It's paragraph H on page 6. And as you look at that section there, you'll notice that there's no references there, statutory references. So that is not something that we need to have in the code. So the question for the council is how much of that paragraph H would you like to keep in, if any? Would you like to take it all out? And I know the main focus is on referendum there, but some of it is worthy of discussion. Forget about the referendum, but because the referendum is coming up, that was the one sentence that had that was the main issue of discussion at the last meeting. So I have made no substantive changes to the ordinance from the last time that you saw it, but I just went back through and kind of explained where all of this came from, and now it's up for discussion again.
Thank you so much, Attorney Johnson. And go ahead, Shelley.
So for political activity, we talked about this. I mean, we talked about the referendum, but we also talked about that, we're a small town, and if we have, somebody like in District 3 that needs help doing campaign, like flyers or whatever, I would hate for this to be a gray area. And I think that if we are, our politics is supposed to be nonpartisan, and I think that if we're trying to help somebody else get up, trying to get it into become an alder or whatever, I think that should be allowed. I mean, why wouldn't I be able to help Amy do flyers or whoever, if they need help to get information out?
And I would certainly agree with that. And if you look at the first clause in the political activity section, it does state while on official city business. So that does clarify. I mean, if you're taking a Saturday afternoon and going door to door for somebody, I don't think that's a violation or a problem. I think this is geared more toward if you show up tonight with a big elect Sarah button on your lapel, that's kind of where this is going. But, and again, official city business is a gray area all by itself. So I will be the first to admit that. But I don't think this is intended to prohibit you from putting a yard sign in your front yard or going door to door for the referendum on when you're not on city time, but it is gray.
Yeah, so can you define city time? I mean, is it just meetings or is it?
I can, but I have not yet. But I could try, and part of me would say, well, you are an elected city official, so you are 24/7 on city time, but I don't think that's accurate. The real easy answer is you're on city time right now. You're on city time whenever you're at a committee meeting, a commission meeting, if you're at a listening session, if you're at a, like if you were at, I know that Columbus doesn't do this very often, but if you're like a ribbon cutting ceremony for the new grocery store or something like that, that would be in your official capacity. Those are the things that come to mind. I could try to define that, but I intentionally have not yet.
For me, most of H is, I don't think it's super relevant on a city level. Because like for some of us, especially like Shelley and Sarah, when we're talking about referendum, that is part of the committee that they're on, and they are definitely doing that during city time. So we certainly can't have that as part of our code of not doing it because we actively do it, and I'm very thankful that we do it at some times. I'm very thankful for the time that Sarah and Shelley have put in. I think one of the things that should probably stay in there is like item number 3 under H, the no elected official or candidate for city elected office shall promise an appointment to any municipal position as an apparent reward for any political activity. I mean, that can stay.
Yep.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. Other than that, I think that's also covered slightly in other areas. I don't know if the section is really necessary other than that, to be honest.
And it certainly is not, it's not required by statute or anything like that. This is something that I have brought in from other codes that I have seen. So taking it out is not objectionable to me.
Right.
Keeping 3 in, I definitely would agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's the only one that, unless someone thinks there's another part of it that should remain. I think the rest of it are things that, some of it are things that we should be doing and do. It just doesn't apply to us, I think, on a city level.
Although
Go ahead, Sarah.
I have a quick question, I'm sorry. It talks about number 1C, receive or give subscriptions or contributions. I can see helping out another candidate if we're going to help out, pass out literature, that sort of thing. But it would be inappropriate for a current candidate to give a contribution to an upcoming candidate's campaign.
I don't know. We're nonpartisan. So for me, I don't think that's a problem. And it also refers to it as a referendum. Like, I'm perfectly, like, I would be willing to help pay for signs for the referendum for the water utility. I think on our level, it's not, we're not electing the president. Like, we're not talking about that here. You know what I mean? Go ahead, Trina.
Oh, no, I'm kind of with Sarah on this one where, I mean, it's nonpartisan, of course, but you don't want to be seen as, purchasing the future favors of someone's going to be on the council with you.
I totally understand that. And I think that's more of where the code of conduct comes in more than this. comes in, if that makes sense.
I respectfully disagree because the Ethics Committee and the Code of Conduct need to tie somewhat.
They do.
And if we're going to be talking about influencing, like promising a position to a candidate, I don't think that we should put ourselves in jeopardy of being accused of monetarily influencing them.
I'm wondering if this has ever been a problem that anybody is aware of. And is it, Ian, I think I'm kind of leaning more towards your opinion on this, and I'm wondering if it's something we could bring up and add in if it does become a problem.
I think I think we're on the same page. I don't believe this could, the realm of this ever becoming a problem is so narrow. How much money did any of you spend on your campaigns? No. Like, so how many contributions did any of you get in your campaigns?
Well,
no.
I spent $400. I do have a comment though. So we also, if I did take donations though, I would have had to have disclosed it. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so if I went and wanted to give Sarah, a couple $100 because she's running for, District 1, she's got to have to disclose that I gave her the money. And to me, I think, it's there, it's for people to see, and it's up to Sarah and the person that gave the money to be professional.
Right. And
fair enough.
I don't see it being an issue. I think it could be included or excluded. I really don't see it being a problem one way or the other. As long as we limit it to only political position, like for referendums and things of that nature, I think we should be able to support them wholly. And if we as on council or as citizens want to help get a referendum passed because we believe that's what's best for our city, why should we not be able to do that? I think that's part of what we do as council. So including that would make it so we can't do that. And so for me, I don't think it's a problem. If you're spending more than a few $100s getting elected for council, I think that's a bigger problem than another council person contributing to that. I don't think it's an issue, so I don't think it needs to be included. We aren't running for the president of the United States. That's my opinion. I don't know of any other council person contributing to another council person's campaign ever, and I just don't think it's an issue. I think item number 3 that could be included, I think it should also go without saying. It's also mentioned in the code of conduct that we're going to talk about next. I think it's alluded to elsewhere in this as well. It's been a little bit since I've read this. So whether or not that section should be completely omitted or we should just include that, that's kind of where I'm at. The rest of it, I don't think it's really that pertinent at our level.
I'd like to see 3 left in, please.
Okay.
And remove the other, and remove 1 and 2?
Yeah.
Okay, looks like we have a consensus for that. How about the rest of the code of conduct? Was there any discussion? I mean, the rest of it to me looked pretty, go ahead, Shelley.
So I hate, and I don't know if this is actually the place where I should bring this up or not. So I did a lot of research on the code of ethics versus the ordinance this past weekend. And a lot of the code of conduct committees were actually made up of residents. So I would like for us to readdress that. If we had some
the makeup of the committee.
Yeah, if we could have some whatever, the mayor and maybe 2 alders and then 2 or 3 citizens. And the reason why is because I was thinking, we're elected by the constituents. And I think that we really need to take their opinion into consideration also.
And I understand that. And I was obviously the one that was against structuring it that way. It's mainly because in a normal world and in the world that we are currently living in, this committee would almost never be called together to function. So to appoint people from our community that absolutely never meet and don't really do anything, to all of a sudden have to do something, or to it just doesn't make sense for a community our size. I'm not sure where you're finding that in what sizes of communities. I don't think it's a practical way forward for Columbus.
Yeah. Well, I think I looked at so many, but I only printed out one. It could have been Belmont, over down by Platteville. Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there because I did see, and I think I saw something on the League of Municipalities too, in regards to that. But like I said, I looked at so many different things and I only really saved a couple just because a lot of it was duplicated. So I wanted to put that out there in case anybody else was having thoughts about that.
I think we should have residents on there as well.
Trina?
I like the idea of having residents on it. I guess I would only see the residents as being someone already on some type of board. Any kind of board where they already have some level of involvement, so it would be less of a big deal and to actually get them to, one more obligation if something pops up.
Yeah, I think that makes a sense to me too, Trina. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Amy? I'm wondering if there's any kind of happy medium sort of thing, where volunteers could be requested, sort of how interested parties were requested when the appointees, myself and Michael, were appointed to the council. I know, for example, the hospital has had in the past, if they still have now, I don't know, but a biomedical ethics committee. Anybody who's been involved in that sort of kind of ethics role outside the city in a different purview, who might be interested in volunteering.
Yeah, I totally understand where you guys are going. And I haven't read the specific ones that Shelley's mentioning. I think part of what the difference may be in what Shelley's looking at potentially is the scope of our ethics committee. We are looking only at the council. This isn't going to be over employees or anything of that nature. So it's going to be such a limited and rare instance of it ever meeting, if it does, that involving residents other than replacing the specific council members and things in the moment just doesn't make practical sense. And it's just difficult to have a committee that they will be appointed to committee for 2 years or however long, and they will absolutely never meet. They will know nothing of what they should be doing or not be doing, and it will be an absolute, that doesn't make any sense to me. If this was a larger scope and it was over employees and we had more to do, the ethics committee was doing more, then I would 1000% agree that citizens should automatically be on it. I think it just, for the scope of what we're looking at, it makes the most sense for it to be made up of the council and substituted by citizens as needed. Go ahead, Sarah.
I disagree for the fact that our council changes as well, right? If this committee is going to meet few and far between, and I certainly hope that it is very far between, we could have a completely different council makeup by that point. And so that negates the point you're saying that residents wouldn't know. In addition, this would be mayoral appointments for the residents. And so I would hope that the mayor at that time would be appointing a resident who would have sufficient background to participate.
I definitely see both sides. I don't see how a mayoral appointment on an ethics committee is somehow held to a higher standard in any of your minds than someone that was duly elected. But that's beside the point. In my mind, it's not a committee that's going to be meeting. So to have residents on it as firmly appointed doesn't make sense. To seek out an appointment when needed, when they meet, otherwise it is the council, that's what makes sense in my mind. But if it sounds like we're fairly split. So let's go one by one. Or do you want to weigh in at all first, Attorney Johnson?
I was gonna offer a third alternative, and maybe I should not do that until you've had your vote.
Oh, please weigh in.
I also see both sides of this, and I agree with part of Ian's premise that because it's so few and far between, hopefully so few and far between, that having people appointed for something that they may never take part in is kind of a waste of energy. That's why I have this set up the way that I do right now, is because it's easier to have the council be the committee because they are already involved. The flip side of that is that if there's ever going to be an ethics complaint, the chances of it being against a council member are good. I mean, it's going to be a council member or it's going to be a commission member somewhere along the line. So that's the flip side of that. What I was going to suggest is kind of a middle ground. You want to have would be to say, all right, the ethics committee is the mayor. The mayor should always be part of it. And perhaps the plan commission chair, the water and light chair, and the zoning board of appeals chair. And I just picked the three chairs that meet fairly regularly, so they know how a meeting runs. They have experience with the whole thing, and they're already involved in city government to some extent. Maybe it doesn't have to be those three, but I was just thinking three people that are fairly knowledgeable of how the government works might be a way to approach it.
The other problem with that is that doesn't solve the issue of what anyone's speaking of, because the only people that would be called up in an ethics committee would be them or us. So True. Appointing them to the ethics committee is absolute zero difference than the council being the ethics committee.
Well, it's a little bit different in that the chances of it being one of you is the highest.
Well, there's more of them. The chances of it being one of them is exponentially higher than it being one of us. And we are duly elected. They are simply appointed. So it still makes zero sense.
I think an ethics complaint will be much more likely to be upon a council member than a commission member, and I hope I'm wrong and it's upon neither. But
well, yeah, right. Hopefully it should be neither.
I've dealt with this for the one community that I represent that set up an ethics committee did so about 12 years ago and has had one complaint. And that was a waste of time and energy, but it has only happened once in the 12 years in that community. So this is few and far between. You are correct.
And was there a committee set up of citizens or council members?
Just like this.
Just council members?
Yes, it's exactly where I took it from.
Sarah?
My concern is this: if we do not have others, frankly, Paul, I do like your suggestion of bringing in certain committee chairs to help with this. Most of the time, those are residents, and my concern with not involving residents is that we are not being transparent.
Yeah.
Right? I would never want anybody to say, oh, the council's just hiding their problems.
And it wouldn't be that. It would be a fully public, televised meeting every single time. It would be just as transparent as every other meeting that we have. The public could attend however the means are at that point in time, whether we're on Zoom or in person, it would be 1,000% transparent, just like a council meeting. And no matter if it's made up of council members or citizens, it would be the same and it would be public. It needs to be public. That shouldn't be a worry. I still just don't, it would be, if council members are a part of it, there would be citizens. That's when we go out to reach for citizens to be there. So if it involves a council member, that council member would be substituted for a citizen. Go ahead, Trina.
Oh, I'm liking Paul's idea of having the chair or the representative from, just those couple of boards. Just to have a little bit of, somewhat outside opinion for this thing that hopefully doesn't actually happen.
So, Paul, can I ask, when in the community where you, that you're familiar with, that dealt with this issue, it was all council members, there were no citizens on the committee, is that right?
That's correct, and the one complaint was brought by a sitting council member against a sitting council member, if I remember correctly.
Do you think it was a problem that there were no citizens on the committee?
No, the village president appointed 2 citizens to fill the spot of the complainant and of the accused, and it went forward just like it was supposed to.
So
that's how it would operate and how we have it set up.
So they would appoint citizens, but they waited until the time that it was necessary to appoint them. So
right.
That would maybe be the strategy, instead of, okay, we're setting up this committee, you're probably never going to meet, but would you volunteer to serve on it?
Well, that is the strategy we have right now, is it's comprised of the council, and citizens are put in place of the council members involved. That's exactly what we have right now.
Right, that is why it is set up this way. If the complaint is against a member of the Water and Light Commission, then the council can hear it. You're already there. If it is against a council member, then you need to appoint on a temporary basis the amount of residents that you need in order to have 7 on your ethics committee. That is how it's set up right now.
So one other thing that might make the rest of council feel more at ease with it, I still hope that we never have to utilize an ethics committee. What if at the mayor's discretion, so obviously if it's against a council member, that member is replaced by a citizen. That's how we have it outlined now. And of course, if a council member was the accuser, that one would also be replaced. That's how we have it outlined right now. But what if at the mayor and or president's discretion, or the vote of the council, however you want to make it happen, a majority council vote, a mayor discretion, whatever, that if they believe the council person in question is too close to another council member, that member is also substituted.
How do we quantify that?
That would be really hard.
It would be really hard. That would be next to impossible to quantify, but go ahead, Shelley.
I just want to chime in with Trina and Attorney Johnson. I like the idea of using the chairs. And that's just only because it provides a little space between.
I want to point out that wasn't a suggestion by Attorney Johnson. That was a thought of a middle ground. His suggestion was actually for the council to make up the committee. So that is not a suggestion.
Okay, we'll go with what Trina said.
Him trying to get us to a middle ground. His suggestion was how it's outlined right now.
Yeah, all right, well, I agree with
And
Teresa.
that would be my preference as well.
Exactly. So it's not Attorney Johnson's
be my
suggestion nor
vote.
preference to do that. He was just trying to appease. Someone else?
You know, I've had experience now since I was elected, appointing people to different councils and commissions and boards. It's not that easy to do. People are really busy. Frankly, I think it would be a hard sell to find somebody that we thought would do a good job, to appoint them as a citizen representative for something that's, fingers crossed, probably not going to meet. And so I think if anything, I'd prefer to see us wait and see, when the occasion arises, then if we feel we need somebody, tackle it then, and do it the way Attorney Johnson recommended. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, so we've had lots of discussion. Shelley, how would you think it should be structured?
I think it should be separated out at least a little bit.
Alder Motive?
I wasn't fully understanding that if there are 2 council members involved, that they're removed and can be replaced with residents. So that makes me feel better.
I like that too.
Yeah, and I think that's an important distinction that we might not have all understood is it's comprised of the council in general. When there's 1, 2, 3, however many council people involved, they get replaced.
And
so are you saying you would like to keep it as is? It comprises the council replacing them, substituting them as needed?
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Alder Rolke?
I'm fine with it as is.
And Alder Reed?
I suppose I can follow the will of the council.
Thank you, Alder Reed. All right, so.
Ian, Michael Clark's here too.
Oh, is he?
Yep.
Oh, Michael Clark? Alder Clark?
I wasn't there for roll, so I've been keeping quiet.
Well, but you are still an alder, and I would still love to hear your opinion. Do you think it should remain composed as the council and substitute council as needed, or should we have citizens standing on permanently?
I have a question about like how that appointment happens for the citizens then. So it's happening at the time of the turmoil. So doesn't that almost become kind of like a really politically seeped appointment?
Well, that answer is yes. And just going by my past experience here, what happened there is that the ethics committee was convened. The first meeting of the ethics committee was the members of the village board minus the 2, the complainant and the accused. And all that happened at the first meeting was, all right, we need to appoint 2 members. Who should we get? The good part about that is depending on what the allegations are, you can kind of tailor the appointments to somebody who might be knowledgeable in the particular area. And then you also have the opportunity to, and if there are council members who think they might be too close to the situation, they also will have that opportunity to recuse themselves from this particular situation. And then you may end up having to appoint more, just depending on what the situation happens to be. So it will be a moment of turmoil. That is true. But you will have the opportunity to step back and kind of settle things down a little bit and decide who these appointments will be before you take any substantive action on what the complaint is.
Yep, so as long as it's a board or the commission that is making the appointment and not resting on one person's shoulders, I'm totally comfortable with that.
Right, and this is set up so that it is not a mayoral appointment, it is a ethics committee appointment as a whole that will have to all agree, and hopefully there's not a complaint against 6 members of the Common Council and the mayor sitting there by herself. That could be a problem. But aside from something like that, it generally works out okay.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'm in favor of that.
Okay, so it sounds like the will of the council is to move forward with the ordinance, striking all of H except for item number 3. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. That was a lot of very good discussion, because this is an important, hopefully something we won't need to utilize, but I do believe this is a very important thing for us to have. So thank you so much for all of that discussion. Does that give Attorney Johnson that's enough direction? Okay, perfect.
That's enough for that part of it, yes.
So next up is the code of conduct. So this is something that Alder Motive and Attorney Johnson have worked on quite a bit. So who would like to start this one off?
If you don't mind, Sarah, I will start as to what you're looking at, and then I will.
I don't mind. Have at it.
I will step aside. So what I did after the last meeting, I was not aware that Alder Motive had taken the time to put something together. So Kyle shared that with me. So what you have in front of you in your packet is Alder Motive's text, and then wherever you see red is me kind of broadening her scope to include the Common Council instead of just the Committee of the Whole. And then the other stuff that you see in red is taken from a few years ago when Mayor Tome at the time was making an effort to put a code of conduct together, and he had got a fair way in his work. I don't think it ever saw the council or the Committee of the Whole, but he had a rather lengthy document. So I took what I liked out of his work and added it to Sarah's work, just so you now have a big, long document that you can go through and pick and choose what you like. So that's what you're looking at right now. It's formatted poorly, and I apologize for that, but I know it's going to get changed, so I figured I'd clean it up after tonight's meeting. But that's what you're looking at.
And again, thank you.
Again, this applies to just elected and appointed officials, not employees. So that's what you're looking at right now.
Thank you so much, Attorney Johnson, and thank you so much, both of you, and previous Mayor Tome's work on this. The majority of what I'm looking at for the code of conduct, I am very much in agreement with. I really like the outline of the code of conduct. What Alder Motive alluded to earlier is, I think somehow we need to tie it back to the ethics committee, at least to some extent. Because I think the overall, what we were looking to accomplish with the ethics committee and everything else is more in this code of conduct than it is in the ethics committee. At least that's my impression. Sarah, did you want to?
I do, before we go any further, just want to say thank you to Paul for adding so much. I think you did a great job in expanding on what I had and made it sound a lot better. The intent of the start of this was just to elevate the professionalism with which this council should be operating under. and to sort of protect itself in case it is not as agreeable and as thoughtful as we are now. So that's really all I wanted to say. I think most of the rest of it was pretty well covered.
Has everyone had a chance to read over the full code of conduct? Any comments or thoughts? Go ahead, Shelley.
So under use of media and social media, so when I was doing my research, some state elected officials, they have like a state mandated Facebook page. So we don't really have that. So I guess what my question is, I mean, okay, so go to use of social media. It doesn't have a page number.
No, it does not. That will be on the second page.
Okay, so where is it? Okay, so the city reserves the right to actively monitor content, current contact. So I guess what my thing is, and then while operating a personal social media council and commission members, so where are we going to draw the line between personal and professional? So if we do this, and if you want the city to be able to control Facebook pages, is this maybe something that the districts should, and the city could be in charge of it, a District 3, District 1, whatever, or just an overall Columbus Facebook page that would be something other than the City of Columbus Facebook page. I feel like there's a lot of gray area in this section, and I think if we want to do this, it should be clear. And because, like, for example, I do have a group, and I hyperlink the packets. So people can go look, so I can look at the packets. And, and then other stuff, I share a few other things here and there. So I think I would like to have this defined better and what we're actually looking at.
I think that's a very valid statement. In my opinion, it should be any time you are acting as a city official. So like your Facebook page where it's Shelley Albright, District 3, you're acting as a city official on that page. Mm-hmm. On your personal page, go bananas, that's your personal page. But if you have a page that is specifically for your position, you are acting in your position in a city manner. So that would be part of it, in my opinion. Okay. So does that make sense? I think we do need to define that better, but that's how I think we should define it.
So this is the thing. The reason why I kept the Facebook page open is because transparency is a huge issue that people complain about all the time. And quite honestly, I've gotten a lot of comments that because I do have the Facebook page, that it's easy for people to reach out to me. And I think, I'm not saying that all of this needs to go away. I just think that we need to be conscious of that. And on the other side of that, I don't want people to be scared of having a Facebook page. So like we have an election coming up. People that are running are probably going to have a Facebook page. And then if they want to continue to run and then they want to have a Facebook page afterwards, I feel like
I don't think anyone's saying not to have a Facebook page like right. Your District 3. I think what maybe needs to be defined is what Ian said earlier, the difference between your personal page and your city business page, and working on a professional manner on the city page, remembering that you're supporting the district at all times, and the city at all times. I'm sorry, that came out wrong.
So is my group subject to open records?
That's an Attorney Johnson question.
That and that depends. So what is your group?
So it's Shelley Albright for District 3. What I do is I post the meetings, after they're videotaped, I post the packets, And then I do, stuff that's happening in town. And, like when we went through the ordinance for the stormwater, I posted that as an individual thing so people can read it. So the thing is, people are constantly complaining about transparency. And honestly, I don't know if it's just me, but I don't think our website is that user-friendly. So it makes it easy for people to get to. And then they can message me if they're in the group or whatever.
Right now, a lot of what you just said is already public record by other means.
Right.
So that part's not a problem. The interaction that you have with your constituents, if it's on the official city website or an official city Facebook page, that probably is a public record. That's part of the social media issue, because if somebody does a public records request for comments off of your city Facebook page, the city has to be able to produce that.
Right.
And if it's your personal Facebook page and it's well defined as being your personal Facebook page, then the city doesn't have that issue. In a perfect world, and I think you do have this. In a perfect world, you have an email account that is tied to the city, and you use that solely for business. And if each of you had a Facebook page that was the official Shelley Albright alderperson Facebook page, that would be okay. And then you would have a pretty good idea of what you can and should put on that page. And then that makes the line a little bit clearer. I don't know if the city social media policy has that component or not. I can't remember. But that would draw the line a little bit clearer than what we're talking about here.
Okay, so then what's going to stop people from having two Facebook pages? Because I could very easily just take, because my personal has my maiden name in it, and I could just very easily have two Facebook pages.
Sure, and the city can't and shouldn't restrict you from having as many Facebook pages as you want, because you might be a elected official, but you're also a citizen.
Okay.
And we can't be in the business of restricting your free speech.
Right. Okay.
The problem is when you're acting as or speaking as a public official, which is what your District 3 one is.
Yes.
You are speaking as a public official on your District 3 Facebook page. It's very clear to the constituents that you are speaking as a public official on your District 3 Facebook page. That's why it exists. I don't think it shouldn't exist. I think it's a good thing what you're doing with that Facebook page. But that is acting as a city official, and that would be what we're discussing, not your personal Facebook page. That Facebook page would be.
All right, so I just, at the end of the day, the not restricting freedom of speech is, and the transparency aspect of it. Because quite honestly, I put stuff on there, bi-weekly or whatever, and mostly it's, like what's going on in town. So I don't really feel like I put any kind of controversial stuff. I mean, I guess I have here and there, but not anything like that I want to cause a huge uproar because of something. So I'm not doing that, right?
And we don't think, none of us think that you're trying to cause an uproar or anything of that nature. And this isn't about you; it's about everyone.
No, I am the one that has an active Facebook page, so I wanted to bring it up. Is there anything in that section that you think you shouldn't adhere to, that you think is not proper, or is there something in that section that's restricting your speech? No, I actually, when I started out, I just wanted clarification on providing hyperlinks to the city website, because I do that all the time. And so was my biggest thing is, so if I'm sharing stuff from the city page, do I have to have some kind of disclaimer that I'm sharing this from the city page, just so that it doesn't, or whatever?
I think she does, doesn't she?
I don't
No,
think so.
she's already acting as a city official on that page.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
there's no disclaimer needed.
Okay.
It's more of just making sure that you act in a professional manner while utilizing that page. You know, like if someone makes a bad remark about a city employee, you shouldn't like it. Or, you know, things of that nature. Make sure you remain professional and in your position while you're on that page. That's all.
Attorney Johnson, can I ask a question about also, about the public records aspect of it?
Sure.
Let's say just, for example, somebody gets on the page and starts, a conversation, and the conversation goes sideways, and then the owner of the page decides to delete it. Are you really deleting a public record at that point?
I think that answer, well, if the conversation is toward you as in your elected capacity, I think that answer is yes. And that is one of the big problems with Facebook pages, in my opinion, is that if the conversation starts going sideways, you're kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, that's kind of.
And there was a period of time, and I had this conversation with Kyle a little while ago, and I can't even remember how our conversation ended. But there was one time in the city's social media policy where I thought the rule was that Facebook pages were allowed from the city, but they were going out only, and there was no opportunity to respond or to comment, just for that purpose.
Yeah.
And I don't know whatever happened to that, because I don't think that is the policy now, but I think that it was at one point in time.
Right. And I personally don't want to restrict that. That's part of where this code of conduct comes in to play, is so that each and every one of us understands what we should and shouldn't be doing on an official capacity, whether it's in person, during a meeting, on Facebook or Twitter. It's more of what we understand what the boundaries should be and how we should operate within them. Because I don't want to inhibit speech. I don't want to not allow Facebook conversations. I don't want to, I like transparency. I like what Shelley's doing with her Facebook page. I think that's a great thing. But I also want us all and future council members to understand what we should and shouldn't do while operating those pages. That's the intent behind this, not to restrict anything, just so that we all understand that, this is what's appropriate and this is what's not appropriate, and operate within those. And on an individual basis, you should decide whether or not you allow people to respond to things. Perhaps if you're posting something that is going to be highly talked about, maybe that post specifically, you should not allow things, but that should be your decision.
Right.
But know that your decision is your decision, and it could come back to bite you.
Yeah.
Sarah's had her hand up for a while.
Okay. One of the other things that has been previously said, and it has been said by you, Shelley, is that when we came on as new council members, we sort of felt like the training wasn't as substantiative as it could have been. And this document was originated in part not only to elevate our professionalism, but to create a document so that there is training in place on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable.
Right. So just I want to add another tidbit. So when we had our listening session, I shared the stuff from the city website to both the chatter sites. The first time, yes, I did turn off all the comments because I was posting it late and I didn't want to deal with if there's any problems. The second time I did it, I did turn it on so that people could make comments or ask questions or whatever like that. So going forward for like January 25th, what do we want to do? Do we want, if we're going to be sharing that information on Facebook for people to see from the city website, are we going to want to allow people to do comments, or should we post those without comments?
I think that's an individual decision. I also do not believe you should be posting on any chatter site or anything of that nature as an official city person. If you are talking on a chatter site as your individual, that's one thing. But if you are operating under your page posting on them, I would highly recommend you don't do that.
Kyle has an actual legal opinion on the comments, don't you?
Yeah, the comments essentially, I think Attorney Johnson touched on it, but on Facebook, if the comments are there and it's considered a public forum, you're kind of stuck with the comments whether you like them or not. My understanding is that as an organization, the Facebook page does not allow us anymore to go comment free. Every post that we have as an organization, Facebook removed that option to have no comments from our level of account. So every time we put information out, we're stuck with everything that comes back. And so that's, I think there's different options at different levels, but as a city, we can't turn the comments off.
Right. But you don't have to allow people to post on your page. That's different than commenting on something.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
But yeah, no, as a city official, I would highly recommend you absolutely never in an official capacity comment on any or post anything on a chatter page. Do that on your own.
All right, so Sarah, we should probably rethink that then. Figure out what we want to do then for the January 25th meeting.
All we were doing was posting when it was at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with posting when a listening session is.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Yeah, we don't want to restrict anything, and there's nothing in here that I thought was restrictive. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It's just boundaries of ethics to operate within. And so that, I don't know how to, I think the big thing is, so we have a code of conduct. What do we do about it if someone doesn't adhere to the code of conduct? That's the only part of the code of conduct that is a bit gray and ambiguous. It references sanctions. It does not reference whom will be delivering those sanctions or what they may be. I think that's, in my opinion, the biggest portion of this that needs discussion. I don't think that the social media section is inhibiting free speech at all. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see anything in the code that I personally disagree with. Is there anything that anyone disagrees with in the code? I'm not seeing anyone disagreeing. So my big thing is, what are the sanctions and who delivers the sanctions? I think that's the big topic we should be speaking of on this.
I think we need to tie it to the ethics committee. Somehow.
And that's my thought.
The way that this is drafted right now is basically, and depending on who you are, council member versus board or commission member, it's designed that if there are violations of the code of conduct, that the council takes care of its own. The council and or the mayor can take care of the commission members. And what's here right now is basically censuring a council member for inappropriate behavior, which is the equivalent of a slap on the hand.
Right.
And taking away commission appointments, which some people might think is actually a gift as opposed to a penalty, depending on what you're dealing with.
Right.
And there is not a reference that says, that violation of any of this, any of the code sections, the code of conduct sections is grounds for disciplinary action before the ethics committee. I did not go that far. I did not know if that's what you had in mind, but that's probably the one thing that is not in here that would tie the two things together.
Right, and I think that should be included. I don't think there's a single member on council right now that it would ever escalate to something of that nature. I think if one of us did something that could be viewed as inappropriate, we could talk to each other and we'd understand it and we'd move forward, and it's not an issue. But what if in the future there is an egregious issue that they just keep on repeating and repeating and repeating? That I think we should have it tied back to the ethics committee for disciplinary actions. And again, this isn't, I'm not talking about any of us doing something. I don't think any of us would need it to go to that level. But I think if we are establishing this code of conduct and our ethics committee, we're not talking about us only. We're talking about the future of Columbus and future councils, and to ensure that we maintain a level of professionalism in the future. Any thoughts on that?
I can certainly add one more section in here that ties, basically that's something along the line of egregious conduct is grounds for a referral to the ethics committee, because I mean, that is what it would be.
Right. Shelley?
So the other thing so I printed out Green Bay's code of ethics. So the other thing that at least I didn't see that it was mentioned in here, so we have a certain expectation as alders and being on committees and whatnot. So I wonder if that expectation for showing up for meetings and or what you need to do if you're going to be absent should be on here.
Oh, that's a good thought. I don't think that's a massive issue now, but that can be an issue. So I think that's a good thought to add to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's important. I think if we're gonna have people that are asking to be appointed, they should show up.
Right. So perhaps recommending a 48-hour notice with a minimum of 24 hours required if you're going to be absent. Go ahead, Trina.
Oh, thank you. I mean, for myself, it's not so much the minimum notice. That would be more of a recommendation, but more of a minimum number of meetings and the actual expectation of showing up for the majority of the boards you're assigned to.
Yeah.
Not sure how to put that concisely.
Yeah, I don't know how to put that concisely either, but I think that's a good idea.
As long as Attorney Johnson does, we're good.
You may already have something in your ordinance that says that, but I know where you're going. I know where you're going with that, Trina, so I can.
I think we do have something in the ordinance that says that, but tying it into the code of conduct and then tying the code of conduct back to the ethics committee, I think that just solidifies things a bit better. So I think it's a good idea having it here as well, because I do believe that we are required 24 hours notice to give 24 hours notice. I think all of that is in an ordinance, but it would make it more clear for it to exist in our code of conduct.
Right, and if it's going to be a training document, that's a good place to say, oh, by the way, this is our ordinance. You have to provide whatever 24 hours notice or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, I think we can basically just pull that from the ordinance and put it into our code of conduct. Having it exist in two places isn't a bad thing. Go ahead, Trina.
Oh, no, again, I'm fine leaving in the 24-hour notice expectation. But I'm looking for the words, that someone should not be calling in for almost every expected meeting with a 24-hour notice of, oh, sorry.
Must maintain a minimum, like, must meet, is like, attend X amount of meetings in X amount of time type of thing?
Or X percentage is expected.
Okay.
Or is it just showing a pattern of participation? I mean, if we're seeing a pattern of they can't make it, I would hate for someone to be in the hospital. I know this is far-fetched, but I'm going to throw it out. You know, what if someone's
Especially
in the hospital?
now.
Right? And they miss, you know, a month's worth of stuff because they have COVID, they're in the hospital. That shouldn't exempt them or, you know, preclude them.
Well, and I think that's where it living in the code of conduct is, works to our favor. Because if you're missing those meetings, it would get referred to the ethics committee.
Right.
And the ethics committee could then say, well, this person's in the hospital.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it living in the code of conduct actually is a good thing in that scenario.
Okay.
You have a city ordinance that applies to commissions that says if you miss 3 meetings in a row, you can be deemed to have resigned.
Okay.
That does not apply to council, that applies to commissions only.
Right.
So that actually that would be like a month and a half. That in theory, I mean, because if there's 2 meetings a month.
It depends on the commission. That could be 3 years for some commissions. It could be 1 month for some commissions.
Yeah.
It depends.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
I mean, some commissions that I've been on have met multiple times in a week. So.
All right, well, that's all I had.
And yeah, adding that language of some nature, I think that's a good idea. Okay. And then just it being referred to the ethics committee.
Okay.
Because then it's our discretion of how we, so that's good. I think that was productive.
For next meeting, would you like me to, I add those 2 sections and clean this up so it's a little bit easier to read and bring it back to the committee of the whole again for another look?
Yeah, I think the committee of the whole is the best place.
Okay. I will do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, then moving on is to review the IT service options. Kyle, if you would give us as brief of a start out on that as possible, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, so about 2 years ago, the city council changed their service provider for IT services to OnTech. I believe at the time they got competitive bids from a variety of companies. OnTech was the lowest bid, and we selected them with a 2-year contract, which is nearing its termination. OnTech has asked us what our intent is as far as continuing a 2-year option, going to a 1-year option, or month to month. The discounts get greater the longer the term. In general, just a quick poll of staff, there is some dissatisfaction with either how effective their service is or the cost of the service, but overall, the majority of staff would like to continue with OnTech. So the main question I have for the city council is what term they would like us to evaluate, if they would like us to continue with OnTech. Dennis, I see, turned his camera on. He in particular has had some some issues with OnTech. My recommendation kind of on the overall is that we engage in a 1 or 2 year agreement. With the 1 year being kind of reserved if we think we're going to go back out and test the waters, and 2 year if we think we're going to continue with them. And before I kind of toss it over to Dennis, I'll just mention that I think there is some cost every time we switch one of these providers. There's some built-in cost as they learn our systems and they make their mistakes and learn from them. We're paying for that every time. So with that, Dennis looks like he wants to talk.
Go ahead, Dennis.
I just wanted to add that my department in particular, we have some very, very specialized police software that cover a lot of different platforms and is very specialized. And I'm not so sure that their familiarity with what we're using across all platforms are time or cost effective, at least for me. I mean, I know a couple of people who do IT stuff that I could simply call for a solution to one of the programs that we use, but I'm not able to do that because we have an exclusive contract with OnTech. And I've had a couple of issues that realistically could have probably been resolved in less than an hour or two, and I've been billed 12 hours and $140 an hour. And there's been some general frustration. They're very good with what they do, and they're responsive. I think we called for a password reset. I want to say it's like $60. I think that's expensive for a 2-minute phone call, but maybe not. I'm not saying do away with OnTech, but I don't know if there's a way we can open up for some potential exceptions for very specialized software maybe that they're not familiar with. And I guess I'll leave it with that.
Thank you, Dennis. Any other thoughts?
Is it time to put an RFP out to do a short-term contract with OnTech and then put an RFP out for another provider?
I think that's
always a possibility. Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the option. The question being, if one of the concerns about OnTech is already cost and they were the lowest cost provider, I think going the short-term contract is going to increase their cost, and then we're probably going to find a replacement company that's at least as expensive, if not more, and then we have to wonder how that company is going to perform as well. And from my experience in other communities, we never seem to like our IT providers because they're not cheap and they don't always fix it at the priority we think it is. And usually when you switch, you're not always as happy as you hoped you were when you intended to make the switch. But it's a policy decision, so,
Yeah, so Trina and I were part of the decision going to OnTech, and I can speak from experience that what OnTech offered us is greater than what the others were offering us, and at a far less cost. The service calls that, like Chief Weiner mentioned, were more expensive with the other companies. So if we were with one of the others, it would have been more money that we were paying for these things to happen. It's not like these password resets wouldn't have happened. We would have likely paid more money when they did happen. And I mean, we're never going to be 1,000% satisfied with our IT provider. Anything that has to do with technology is frustrating at times, and there's always going to be something that we find lacking in it. I think overall, OnTech has done a good job. They upgraded a lot for us when we first brought them on, and it was at quite an expense. Bringing on another company and undergoing that expense again just doesn't make sense to me. Trina, you had your hand up.
Oh, yes, I also recall it being quite expensive. I cannot recall the amount, but it was definitely lots of hours for having, their staff and then our staff for some extra training. The thing I remember that made OnTech sort of head above the rest was that there was the option for having a live, real person physically come to your location if that was needed. Where a lot of the other ones we looked at, they were more expensive, and there was no way to be like, help, it's broken, I need you here. No, I can't have you try to fix it remotely. Please come. There just wasn't an option for that for a lot of companies.
Right, and if they did do it, it was really expensive. Like, on-tech service calls might not be cheap, but they were the cheapest out of everyone we looked at before. Go ahead, Trina.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how we would be able to look into some of their billing hours. I mean, on the occasion where there's disputes, if we suspect, probably took them an hour and they're billing for, 12.
I think in those cases, having the department head, like Dennis, I think has actually done this in the past, go back and work with them and kind of question, we called you for this, you came and billed us once, now you came the next day because whatever you did didn't fix it, and trying to get them to reduce those, I think, solve some of those. And some of the password reset things, I think it's maybe maximizing what we can do in-house through their systems, and I'm not sure we've kind of reached our full potential yet with that.
Right. Michael?
Would there be anything precluding us to allow Dennis to get specialized support so long as it was under contract and billed from his department?
Yeah, the only issue we have is that we literally share a server, like it's one server with partitions. So we would have multiple people working on the email system, the server system, sharing space. I think it would add more complexity than benefit.
I agree with that as well, and I don't think OnTech would have any interest in that with someone else that has their hands in the server cookie jar per se, because they're ultimately responsible for it is a primary. But some of the issues that I've had have been like the 12-hour issue I'm talking about was a setting on one of the squad laptops that doesn't require network access. It was a permissions and a security thing, and I got billed for 2 6-hour visits before they resolved it. And first and foremost, they were not here 12 hours, even close to 12 hours. But the bill came, and it is what it is. It's hard to prove back a couple of months by the time I saw the bill what did or didn't happen. But there's simple things. I would like the option to reach out to some people who have the specialty stuff in the law enforcement software. Wouldn't necessarily be accessing the server, but maybe accessing our program. I think that would save me a lot of money. It's just that our software is so different than just your typical Word and Windows and Office and Excel and Cassell and those types of things that are very standard, Office type environment software programs. We're using the squad video system, we're using wireless transmittals, we're using the traffic citation stuff wirelessly transmitting to the PD, the squad video. So we have a lot of real dynamic stuff here that sometimes takes a long time to figure out something simple.
So to be on your end, though, like maybe you'd be getting the support for it, you wouldn't be getting it on the server infrastructure side.
Yeah, if there's some way, and I don't know if they would agree to this, so it might be a lost cause, but just some way that I could get assistance with, hardware stuff. I wouldn't want the person to have access to the network just because it would just create headaches, and if things go bad, they'd be going like this with whose fault it is. But just some like soft hardware issues or software programs in the squad that don't necessarily require any access to the server, just the device itself would be great. But I don't know if they would agree to that. So we might be opening a can of worms, and I'll just have to be more manage the time more that they're here and keep an eye on it and try to resolve some of my own stuff, which I do. I'm pretty knowledgeable. When they first met with us and sat down when they started, and we started talking about the IPs and the wireless and all those kinds of things, they were actually pretty impressed. So I do a lot of stuff here that saves us a lot of money in the first place. Nothing accessing the server, but I mean, aside from if I wasn't here, our IT bills would be beyond astronomical.
Thank you. So what we're looking for is a direction of how the council would like to go. I personally, living through this prior, don't believe we're going to save money. We'll be spending money elsewhere, and for the majority, ONTEC has been doing a good job and a better job than we've had previous. So in my opinion, we should resign for a 2-year. But what is the will of the council?
I would agree with that.
I would too.
Fine with that.
Same here.
All right. That looks like we have an agreement to move forward with ONTEC. Next up is to review and request carryover and flex time holiday hours. Kyle or Chief, which one of you wanted to kind of take that one?
I can start with it. The initial request came from the chief, but I think there's bigger implications that might go outside of just the salaried employees at the police department. So sort of a perfect storm with limited staffing, the lieutenants, which are salaried positions, having to cover, to provide, the mandatory law enforcement coverage, covering the hourly shifts and being on the road. As they are working these extra hours and they're having to cover holidays, they're not having any time available to get reimbursed, I guess, basically for their holiday by taking another day off. Additionally, when they do work these extra hours, especially with the holidays in there, on December 31st, their hours zero out to nothing with no payout because they're salaried. And the flex hours are supposed to give them the flexibility to work extra at some times and then take off at other times. So the two ultimate issues that we're looking for is that on the short term, for anyone who is required to work on a holiday in the last 3 months of 2021, they would be able to carry those hours over as flex hours into the first 3 months of 2022. And then the second thing would be that that reset on December 31 of the 40 hours of flex going down to zero, to not do that this year. The intent was to present that in the personnel manual revision anyways, so that there is no drop off of those hours. They would continue to be treated the same way, so there's really no additional cost to it because it doesn't get paid out to employees who would leave or retire. So those are the two requests, and then Chief, I don't know if you wanted to add any more.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to add that this year in particular maybe brought the situation to light. As the city policy manual is written, which covers the lieutenants and myself, it's directed for Monday through Friday, non-holiday working employees. Well, both the lieutenants here currently work a rotating schedule with the officers of 6 days on and 3 days off. So they may be off on a holiday, they may be working on a holiday. Especially this year, it's been crazy for us the last 2 months. Since mid-November, we've been down 3 people, 2 vacancies, and someone went on family leave. And then mid-December, Officer Hen resigned and left law enforcement. So from mid-December to the end of the year, we were down 4 people out of 9. And providing coverage 24 hours a day. And it was very difficult. And also trying to get people put in their vacation picks a year in advance. And they're assigned by seniority. And one officer had a 2-week vacation planned in Arizona. They planned some time ago. We certainly don't want to go back to revoking vacation time. So the lieutenants in December, also in November, but more so in December, put in a lot of extra hours that they weren't able to take off for what they worked extra because there's no one to work. They're filling a shift as a one officer on duty at a time. So I know the policy manual is being rewritten, and I talked to Kyle previously about maybe addressing this somehow in there, just so that we're not looking for anything extra. All I'm looking for is my staff getting the extra time off for the extra time they put in. And I think that's a very fair asking. As a department head, I understand losing time, and it's part of the game. And I give back a lot of hours to the city every year, and it's okay. But for the lieutenants who are out working on patrol and have a ton of time to take off but can't take it off, and then essentially under the current guidelines, December 31st, it goes down to 0. I don't think is fair, especially since we're put in a staffing situation the last 2 months of this year that we have 0 control over. This isn't a situation of anybody waiting till the last minute and going, oh boy, I don't want to lose this time. Can we maybe carry it over? It's a matter of it was impossible for them to take it off, period. So I would like to see them made whole for the extra time. Lieutenant Conkle worked several 12-hour shifts in a row, including on his off days, to help keep the schedule full so others could be off. So I'm just looking to, get them what I feel they deserve.
Right. I think we all fully understand and appreciate that. And we appreciate the extra hours and everything you and the rest of the force has been doing for our community so much. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
It's been a very, very tough year for our staff, and I am very, very proud of them because our call volume is way up and our staffing is way down. So we are continually doing more with less. We're off to 2021 with a good start with 2 hires, and then we'll be advertising for Officer Hen spot soon. So we all have our fingers crossed. But like I said, I'm hoping the last couple of months of this year were an anomaly. And again, I'm just looking to see that my employees get what they have coming. Nothing above and beyond, just what they earn.
My biggest question to you, Chief, is would simply not making flex hours reset on December 31st fix the issue? Like you can keep up to 40 flex hours forever and they never reset. Would that fix the issue?
I think that would absolutely help. I mean, I'm not totally against them being zeroed out at the end of the year because, really hasn't been an issue in years past. I've given a fair amount of time back every year, December 31st for the last many years. It's okay. But again, this year was such an anomaly that's why it's even coming up.
Well, my question is, if we do that, would that resolve the holiday hours of the lieutenants and things, or would there still be something lacking if we did that?
There's kind of 2 separate issues here. The first issue is the extra hours that they work to get the 1-for-1 time off, the flex time that we have. And then also, if they work a holiday, let's say Lieutenant Conkle worked December 31st, New Year's Eve. Well, he should be able to get another day off. Well, it's the last day of the year. You can't take it off. Like with me, every year I work the 4th of July for obvious reasons. And then I take a day off here or there the next week or so in its place. So we're just looking to, if they work a holiday, to let them have a flex day in the near future. After that, I want to say Kyle put it to 90 days, if I remember right, in his paperwork. And, the comp time could keep it running at 40 or whatever number you pick that doesn't zero out at the end of the year. That would solve that problem.
Okay, so so my big question is, if we simply just make it so it never zeroes out, does it fix both problems?
It fixes the extra hours, but not the holiday issue. They should be able to use a holiday. I would ask that 90 days be involved with. If they worked a holiday and were not able to take the paid holiday off.
So are the holiday hours separate from flex hours?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to address.
Are separate from flex hours. We call them comp time. We call it comp time here because that's what it's referred to for the officers. But yeah, there's separate holidays and separate comp time or personal time.
Okay, so you have 2 separate flex hours then?
Correct.
Okay, so we need to address doing, are there two different accounts that they accrue in then?
Well, your holidays will, yes. I believe they're kept in a 3-ring binder here by the office manager, and that's where the running tally is kept. And then, the holiday hours also show up on your paycheck, what your tally is for holiday hours. The flex hours are kept, internally here by the office manager when she computes the timesheets.
Okay, so you're requesting holiday hours don't expire for 3 months regardless of calendar year. I would also then add that flex time hours never expire. You just can't accrue more than 40 at a time.
That would solve it. I see Sarah has a question also.
Yeah, well, Trina was first.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right, Chief. I guess I would like to give the lieutenants, the whole year to be able to use up their, missed earned hours. I don't want to try and cram it into 3 months just in case we're a little short-staffed with, someone getting sick and someone up and also waiting on the new trainees to be ready to go. I prefer not to have the stress of even 3 months on them this time.
I understand that too. So during a 3-month period, there's never more than a couple holidays that we would comp for, correct? So
yeah.
what if we have max holiday hours of X amount and a max flex hours of X amount, and they just never expire? You can't accrue more than, and you just keep them.
That's part of my question, if you don't mind my interjecting. I think there are labor standards for how long you can carry those over. And I think before we approve anything, don't get me wrong, Chief, I think they are all do this. I just want to make sure that we are not putting ourselves in jeopardy by saying you can have it forever, you can have it for a year, whatever, and then we get a fine for having incorrect labor standards.
Well,
Yeah, I don't know if it's different because a contract is involved, but the officers are allowed to carry their stuff over, their comp hours over. I don't think
labor standards would have a minimum time, not a maximum time.
Yeah.
If we make it indefinite.
We want to do it right, absolutely. So we can certainly look into that.
Yeah, actually, you're wrong on that, Ian, when it comes to FLSA, but I can go over that with you later.
Go ahead, Shelley.
So I've used to do payroll, and 90 days is customarily the amount of time. Now, because one thing, if you're doing your books, you holiday pay. So if you let them carry those whatever 40 hours over for a holiday pay for 90 days, and that employee leaves, are you going to pay that out? If you are, if that was earned holiday, you're going to pay that out, and at the end of the year, you're going to want to accrue it. So I'm not a fan for the whole year. Would be more of a 90-day in the 90-day front, just for the accounting aspect of it.
Well, these are non-paid hours. They don't get paid out if they leave. The flex hours don't get paid.
Holiday pay would, right?
So as written in the memo, the holiday pay, that the holiday hours they worked would be added like flex hours and would be treated as flex hours moving into that first 3 months. That's how... I'm not sure how the police department accounts for it. The manual indicates that you should basically count the holiday hours whenever they happen. So even if you worked on that day, that means you'd get your 8 hours of holiday pay plus what you worked, which would mean that you'd earn a whole bunch of flex for that pay period if you couldn't take off another day. So then those would just be flex hours, not holiday hours.
I just want to make sure that we're in the right standards for how long it can be carried over. They can carry it over for a year. That's amazing, and I support that we do that. I just am not convinced we can.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do some more homework then. That's not a problem. I mean, the holidays, they happen sporadically during the year, so, that wouldn't be, the paid time off for the extra hours would be the one that would be nice if they would be capped at 40 and not be deleted December 31st. I mean,
Yeah.
I think.
I think if we can just cap our flex hours at 40 and not delete them, if that's allowable, because those aren't paid hours if they leave. Those are just, they disappear if you leave.
Correct.
If you retire, they disappear. They don't go anywhere.
Correct.
If we can just cap it at 40 and allow you to carry them over as long as you have them, you just can't exceed 40. That makes sense to me.
I'll do some research on the holiday carryovers too in between now and the next meeting.
Thank you.
Trina?
Oh, just a quick question. So if they're maxed out at 40, then do they need to take their time and then does it automatically start within that same time frame as soon as they've used up the hours?
Well, if they hit 40, they shouldn't be able to accrue anymore. So then they're essentially working for nothing. So that would be counterproductive for them. So I would just monitor it like I quasi do now, and make sure that if they're getting near, they need to burn some time off. In a couple of months, when we have a couple more people up and trained, that'll be a very simple. And I'm going to go home early today, or I'm going to take this day off or that. That'll be pretty easy. But just these last several months of this year, it's just been absolutely impossible.
I'm sorry for you and your staff for that. I hope it gets better.
Like I said, I'm very proud of them. They've done a great job, and we're doing fine. And, we all realize that, we need to be here and we want to be here, and that's why we work here. So,
So as far as direction for staff, is everyone in agreement if we can just allow them to continuously carry them over and cap it at 40, that we do that?
Mm-hmm.
So staff will figure out if that's allowable. If that's allowable, let's just do it. I don't think there's a reason not to do it. Unfortunately, COVID doesn't appear to be going away, so this isn't something that is going to be an ending issue, unfortunately. So I think if we can just make it perpetual, let's make it perpetual.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. And that wraps us up for tonight. Unless anybody else has anything, I would take a motion to adjourn.
I'm tired. Let's adjourn. I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Didn't think so. All right, we stand adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Good night.